Welcome to Late Night Story. When the world goes silent and shadows stretch longer, some stories awaken, whispered only to those still awake. So put on your headphones, turn down the lights, and let me guide you through the quiet hours. If you're listening alone, you're exactly where you need to be. If everyone can leave a comment to let me know where you are listening from in the world, don't forget to subscribe before you drift too far into the dark.
Of Night and Day, Chapter 9. Sakiel stood on the bridge of the mining frigate, looking over a number of screens and interfaces, while discussing their current heading with the pilot. Jax barged into the bridge. "Satch, a damn word now," he shouted. Sakiel took a measured breath. "Sorry, I'll be right there." Sakiel finished up and went to meet Jax, closing the door behind him only to find Jax and Jophiel both staring him down. "Jophiel? Now I'm worried." "Show him," Jax calmly. Jophiel's eyes narrowed. Sakiel gave a curious look to Jax. Jax handed over a tablet. "Yuki's biometrics. They flatlined a week ago." Sakiel took the tablet. "No one told me any of this. Central Monitoring has." He examined the data. "That's not possible." He shook his head. "This has to be fake." "Verify that that's Yuki's transponder." "Pinged it, it's live, but reporting no biometrics," Jophiel explained. "Meaning," Jax picked up, "she's either dead or the suit is damaged. Either way, no one told us." "Don't look at me," Sakiel defended. "I'm as in the dark as the rest of you." A ringing signal occurred on Sakiel's belt. He grumbled and looked at the phone. Jax gave the phone a suspicious look. "Who's that?" "Central." Sakiel held up his finger. "This is Sakiel." "Yes," he frowned. "I see. They're announcing it when." Jophiel and Jax exchanged a concerned look. Sakiel nodded. "Thanks. I'll inform the crew." He ended the call, staring at the phone in disbelief. "Well," Jax asked impatiently. "That was Central. They just told me what you did." Sakiel looked at the tablet. "Where did you get this info?" "A friend," Jax confessed. "Someone who's looking out for us on the ground." "Oh, really? What's the friend's name?" "I don't think that's important." Jophiel placed his hand on Jax's shoulder. "I think we're done here." Jax nodded, turning and floating down the hallway with Jophiel. After they had moved down the hallway some distance, Jophiel heaved a sigh. "What do you think?" Jax asked. He had no idea. Jophiel shook his head. "Just a middleman. This Persephone person gave you some crazy data. But what do they want in return?" Jax grinned. "Well, if they're scheduling a press conference, let's just say I gave them something to make it an interesting event." Cleo tapped on her tablet as the elevator containing her and Eric Sorjoy descended down the massive tower of Farnsworth Inc. Sorjoy turned to her. "You made quite the impression on me so far." He turned to face the elevator doors. "Do you think you can keep it up?" Cleo finished her tapping. "I am certain I can, Mr. Sorjoy. Our ride is waiting in front of the building." Sorjoy's eyebrow arched. "We aren't having the press conference in front of headquarters." "No, sir," Cleo explained as they exited the elevator moments after the doors opened. As the situation occurred within the mining division, the press conference was scheduled in front of the Space Miners Acquisition Center. There we have a press relations representative, as well as the director of operations of mining and spaceflight available for any questions. Sorjoy nodded. "Do you have a reason for that?" "To distance your image from that of our subsidiaries," Cleo informed. "So on the off chance the press conference goes poorly," Sorjoy thought out loud as he exited the building to a surprising lack of fanfare, moving towards a large limousine with blacked-out windows. "We can mitigate the fallout." A man in a black suit and trench coat, black gloves, and dark skin stood by. He wore a large chauffeur's hat and dark sunglasses, with a practiced elegance. He opened the limo door for the pair, his leather-gloved hand ushering the pair in. His tan wings extended out from his back properly as he bowed his head, his free hand tucked against his waist. Cleo stopped briefly to nod at the man before she climbed into the limo after Sorjoy. "Precisely, Mr. Sorjoy." Sorjoy chuckled in appreciation. "Very good, Ms. Walters." Cleo smiled slyly as she busily tapped on her tablet. The limo sped the pair through the city and to the outskirts. Eventually, they reached a large facility with multiple launch pads surrounding it, as well as a central building with the letters SMAC posted boldly on the front. The limousine slowly crawled through a slew of reporters clustered outside as it made its way to a secure parking lot. A podium had been set up outside of the fence. A series of small transport carts brought several men to the limousine. As the small group of carts grew closer, the chauffeur opened the door for Sorjoy and Cleo to emerge. An older gentleman with short graying hair and feather-bare wings approached Sorjoy with a rather prim and proper greeting, offering a handshake. "Mr. Sorjoy," he said officially, "pleasure to meet you. Director Buford, yes?" Sorjoy asked. "Yes, sir," Buford confirmed. "Director of SMAC. I'll be making the initial statement to the press." Cleo made a few minor taps on her tablet. "Seems they're getting a little restless." Buford chuckled. "There anything we need to review?" The public relations representative, Alf Sohnstein, chuckled. "This isn't like a space launch. Not much to check or recheck. We get up, give our somber news, and move on." Buford nodded and grunted a bit. "Yes, shame. Carcade was a damn good pilot. Not shocked she managed to land that thing. If anyone could, it would be her." He cracked his neck. "Well, let's get this show on the road." Sorjoy nodded. "I'll be watching the Feather News Network's feed. I trust you can both handle the situation." Both men nodded and made their way to the fence, several armed guards escorting them. The chauffeur opened the limousine door once more, and Sorjoy and Cleo slid back in. Sorjoy clicked a button on the console, and a small screen lit up. "We go live to Farnsworth Inc. SMAC for a special announcement," the reporter announced as the video shifted to a vantage point in front of the podium. Director Buford slowly made his way to the podium, tapping a microphone and confirming it was on. He cleared his throat. "Good evening," he began. "My name is Charles Buford. I'm the Director of Operations at the Space Miners Acquisition Center for Farnsworth Incorporated." There were a few flashes of cameras and some murmuring. "I'm here to make an announcement regarding the Nightfall incident that occurred last week." He glanced down at the teleprompter. "Sadly, earlier today the biometric monitoring systems in Ms. Carcade's flight suit flatlined. We've investigated and found no error in the equipment. As such, we have to come to the unfortunate conclusion that our miner Yuki Carcade has died on the surface of Night." There was some shouting from the reporters as Buford scanned each face critically. "I'll take a few questions," he pointed to one woman. "Yes?" The reporter stood. "Good evening, Director Buford. Sandra Tier, New Evangelion Post." Buford nodded. "Go ahead." Sources from within SMAC are stating that the rescue vessel was removed from the frigate in order to provide more space for cargo. Can you confirm this? Buford nodded. "Indeed. The last time there was a nightfall was before I was even born, which, as many are aware, was a very long time ago," he chuckled. "As such, we did not, nor do we plan, to waste precious cargo space for a lander that, in all honesty, would be unnecessary. Doesn't that put miners at risk?" Sandra asked. Buford shook his head. "Not at all. In fact, by removing landers, our people take on less risk. Night is a dangerous planet. The fact Ms. Carcade survived even a short time is a miracle." Hands flew up again as the initial reporter sat down. "You, sir?" Buford pointed to an older man with a bald head and light blue wings, wearing a tan trench coat and dress shirt. "David Reesum, FNN. We have recently received an inventory list from an anonymous source itemizing the contents of a so-called survival kit that is stowed in all mining ships." Buford's brow furrowed. "That's right. Every ship has one. They're equipped with rations, potable water, and an assortment of helpful items. Is there a question here?" David nodded. "And is it true that one of those helpful items is a small arms weapon, preloaded with a single bullet?" Sorjoy sat up in his seat. "What the fuck?" Cleo's eyes went wide. "That can't be true." Sorjoy's lip lifted in anger. Buford turned to Alphonse and covered the mic, discussing something out of earshot as the reporters all murmured. David added, "We hear there are .33 caliber pistols with all but one bullet pre-fired. The implications of this are clear. Are we to assume this is how Miss Carcade died?" Alphonse moved Burford aside. clearing his throat. "Hello, I'm Alphonse Sine, a representative for Farnsworth Inc., he began. "I think we need to remember the situation a miner who survives a fall on Night is faced with." Sorejoy's lip twitched again. "No, you sonofabbert, don't you fucking confirm it. The kit takes multiple scenarios into account, including potentially hopeless situations." Alphonse gave a theatrical, heavy sigh. "And yes, we do have a compassion to give our miners a chance to spare themselves the pain. So," David proposed, "when the smack takes too long to send a rescue vessel, the miner has another option?" David pointed his pen at Allsphone. "Did Yuki Carcade use a weapon from your rescue kit on herself? Did she have no choice because smack felt a rescue was too expensive?" "That's ridiculous," Alphonse shouted, losing his cool. "We have no way of knowing by what means she lost her life." Cleo inhaled through her teeth while flinching. Sorejoy's fist clenched tight enough where his knuckles cracked. "Cleo, I think you have an idea what I want to do regarding Alphonse's future prospects, yes?" Cleo nodded, tapping on her tablet. "Yes, sir, but perhaps you should calm down." Sorejoy turned to Cleo, glaring at her. Cleo faced her tablet, diligently tapping on its surface. David added, "So you assert that Farnsworth cannot even be bothered to determine a cause of death?" Alphonse stalked away from the podium in disgust. Buford took his place, holding up his hands. "The goal of SMAC is the safety and well-being of all of our highly skilled employees. This situation is a tragedy, an anomaly, and rather than assigning blame, we should all keep our thoughts and prayers with Yuki Carcade's family in this dark time." Sorejoy shut off the TV and cracked the window of his limo, motioning for Alphonse to get in. Alphonse escaped the throngs of reporters and climbed in. He heaved a sigh of relief, reaching for the minibar. "They ate me alive out there. Animals tend to do that when you hang yourself out there like a slab of meat," Sorejoy quipped. He glared. "Your job is to stand there and tell the world that water is dry and make them believe it. What was I supposed to do?" Alphonse frowned. "Lie," Sorejoy snapped. "Now we have the single bullet out on the airwaves. They are to focus on the tragedy, not how it could have potentially happened." "I'm sorry, Mr. Dash." "No," Sorejoy shouted. "Sorry doesn't cover massive PR fuck-up." He turned his attention to Cleo. Cleo smiled at Alphonse, a compact printer next to her spitting out a small slip of paper. She gently took the paper and offered it to him. "For your services rendered up until about 5 seconds ago. I am so very sorry it didn't work out for you here at Farnsworth. Have a pleasant day." The limo pulled over, and Alphonse took the envelope. "You're firing me?" "No," Mr. Sorejoy stated plainly, opening the door to the limo. "I fired you 5 seconds ago. Now get out." Alphonse took the envelope and got out of the car. He glared at Mr. Sorejoy. "Fine then, sir. I hope you and your cheap slut have a lovely drive back to the office. Oh, and Cleo?" Cleo looked at him, smiling pleasantly. "Yes?" "Fuck your pleasant day." Cleo smiled smugly as the door closed and the tinted window was rolled up. Sorejoy closed his eyes. "Driver, drop me off at the office, and please take Miss Walters home." "Sir," Cleo asked, "you've done everything you can today. Exceptionally well." Sorejoy waited for the chauffeur to open his door. Before he climbed out, he turned to Cleo. "Consider a thank you for a job well done." "Thank you, sir," Cleo said as Sorejoy climbed out of the limousine. Cleo heaved a sigh and moved further up the limousine, closer to the cab. She lowered the partition once the car began to move. "Nab, mind explaining yourself?" A chuckle from the chauffeur came as he removed his hat and sunglasses. "Order came in for a limo. When I saw who it was, I figured I ought to pick you up." "Mum," Cleo sighed, tapping a few things on her tablet. "Mimi put you up to this? What kind of friend would I be if I didn't follow Madame Mimi's requests?" Nibirius chuckled. "I do work for her." "I do too," Cleo frowned, lowering her tablet. "Now anyway," Nibirios was silent for a moment. "You could have done way worse than an escort." "Oh," Cleo turned to him. "I don't think it could have been any worse. Without me scouting you, you have wound up on a street corner." He looked to her in the rear view mirror. Cleo sighed. Shouldn't have been that way. Cleo leaned back, looking up to the ceiling. Try to save my father some money and end up disowned. High society doesn't even know my father has a daughter now. She turned to Nibirios. So, why are you driving a limo around today exactly? Girls are working. So are you, he smiled. I dropped Mimi and Taryn off at clients. Also, officially I am a chauffeur. Officially? Cleo scoffed. You're Mimi's muscle. I like to think of myself as more than just muscle. I find new talent, make sure you girls get paid, and you frown, and make sure the girls are safe, that includes you. Cleo looked away. So there's no escape? Am I always just one of Mimi's girls? Will I always be an escort? Nibirio saw Cleo's reaction and looked ahead, frowning. Sorry. No, Cleo said, shivering. I'm sorry. It wasn't your fault what happened. I was young and stupid, and I needed the money for college. I heard that trying to get that money got you kicked out of college. Nibirios explained. That's a shit situation. Ironic, Cleo corrected. It's ironic that the thing I did to save my college career was the very thing that ended it. I never got how it all fell apart, Nibirios began. I mean, getting kicked out of school, sure, Cleo cut him off. Thanks to that bastard Palma, I lost every scholarship, every grant, and I'm still paying that damn school off. Cleo snapped, and that bastard has the gall to keep showing up in my life. Nibirios' eyebrow raised. Palma? What does he have to do with this? Cleo winced. He's the one who got me this job. But he also is how I wound up with Mimi and you to begin with. Nibirios pulled the limo over in front of the house and shut the engine. Palma? Did he bust you for something? Cleo sighed. You could say he busted me, yes. Does Mimi know? Nibirios questioned. She knew, Cleo sighed. Mimi knows everything. When she found out that Palma was at the hotel, she wasn't pleased. Wasn't pleased? Why? I should have left when you told me who was inside that hotel room, Cleo lamented. You two have a history? Nibirios chuckled. Before the show, I mean? Cleo sighed, looking at the house the limo would stop in front of. The show, a tear ran down her cheek. Some time ago, Cleo and Taryn sat in a large hotel bathroom, primping and preening in elaborate and scant outfits. Cleo was the more modest of the pair, wearing high heels and a little black dress with the lace tops of thigh-high stockings showing. Large earrings dangled from her ears, and her face was heavily made up with deep red lipstick, colorful eyeshadow, and long extended lashes. Glitter had been dispersed through her wings. I can't believe you convinced me to do this. Taryn was in a similar state, though her dress was vastly different. Taryn wore a bright red dress that hugged every inch of her, and though she wore similar heels and stockings as Cleo, her dress was skimpy with a much shorter hem and deep plunge to show off her cleavage. Cleo frowned in the mirror. I can't take this. Oh, the glitter will wash off besides. Taryn flexed her red feathery wings, with the glitter drifting off to them. We're glitter sisters. Taryn winked. I mean this whole stripping thing. Cleo sighed. She whispered to Taryn. I feel naked. Taryn frowned. Don't worry, Cleo. I'll be right there with you. It'll be over before you know it. Cleo was shaking. Taryn, I'm having second thoughts. Taryn turned to her friend, taking her shoulders gently. Come on, we can't back out now. Think of the money. 7.5 grand. Cleo's eyes were watering. I don't know, Taryn, you're just getting cold feet. They're gonna love you. Okay? Please don't let me go out there all by myself. Taryn pleaded, giving her best puppy dog eyes. Okay, I won't, I promise, Cleo said as she took a deep breath. Remember, you're never going to see these guys again. Taryn comforted. Cleo nodded, making sure her mascara hadn't run. Jim, a scrawny fellow with slick back hair and a dress shirt stretched over a belly that clearly strained the shirt buttons, walked into the dressing room. Everyone is paid up. Jim announced happily. He examined both girls. Wow, 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 he grinned. You look sexy, Cleo. Do you ever want to work for me full time? I bet you'd pull in 5 grand a week from tips. Cleo looked away. It's just a one-night thing. Besides, she'd steal all my customers. Taryn teased. Jim frowned. Yeah, well, the reason you're here is because you were almost getting caught giving out extras at my club. He grinned. But here, get all the extras you want. Taryn frowned. I mean, I was expecting a few dash. Jim shook his head. These guys are expecting it. He narrowed his eyes on Cleo. What's with her, Taryn? He turned to Taryn. She isn't backing out, is she? Taryn shook her head. No, she's not. Jim smiled. Good, because if she did, I'd have to smack the shit out of you. Cleo narrowed her eyes on him. Lay a finger on her and I'll dash. Taryn stopped her. No one is backing out, so no one has to worry about it. She forced a smile. Jim shot a look at Cleo. Taryn told me you were down for this. Don't go squealing about any of the clients you see here, got it? Taryn shook her head. Got it? She needs the cash. Trust me, she needs it badly. Jim shook his head. Fucking junkies. Least you're bringing me cash. Jim grumbled as he left the dressing room. Cleo harshly whispered into Taryn's ear, You didn't tell me Big Jim was going to beat you if you didn't find someone. He's just joking. Taryn fibbed. Come on, Cleo. Showtime. A wolf whistle pierced the room as Taryn pulled her dress over her, bouncing her large breasts proudly. Taryn then bent over, looking to Cleo and winking. Cleo gave a naughty look to one man in the crowd in particular, and gave a fake spank to Taryn, who shot straight up and gave an overly dramatic gasp. Taryn used this time to grab the hem of Cleo's dress and quickly toss it over her head. Unlike Taryn, Cleo wore a lacy bra that matched her white G-string and stockings. Cleo covered her exposed ass, half for show and half instinctively. She felt far more naked as she heard the group of men start chanting and cheering. She felt heat rush to her cheeks. Taryn moved in front of Cleo, wrapping her arms around her neck, whispering, I'm with you, hon. Just remember, this will be over before you know it. Now feel me up from behind for them. Taryn turned to face the men, her rear pushing against Cleo's hip. Cleo's hands moved slowly from Taryn's hips, while Taryn gyrated her hips and moved up along her body, reaching her large breasts. Cleo whispered into her ear, I never should have done this. Pinch your nips, a male voice shouted. Taryn let out an over-dramatized moan. Yeah, honey, pinch my nipples. Cleo was beyond embarrassed, whispering behind Taryn's flare of red hair, I am never going to forgive you for getting me into this, giving Taryn's nipple an extra hard pinch. Taryn gasped, half in pain and shock, half for show. Cleo got the odd vibe that Taryn was okay with the pain. Money was tossed onto the stage at their feet. Cleo resolved herself to lay claim to the stage cash, as Taryn had roped her into this terrible ordeal. Show the white chick, a voice said. Taryn smiled. But she's doing such a... Taryn's voice hitched up as she moved her hand over Cleo's fingers. Wonderful job. Pearl, the crowd chanted. You're on. Taryn grinned as she spun Cleo around, unhooking her bra in the process. Cleo felt dizzy and white noise started to fill her ears as the men went wild at her nudity. She scanned the crowd, focusing on a man who wasn't chanting. He became her focal point as she realized he seemed just as awkward in the situation as she felt. Cleo gave the man a comforting smile. If he's feeling just as pressured, then maybe he'll be fine, she thought to herself. Cleo spread her wings and danced a bit more fluidly. She flapped her wings at the awkward gentleman, sending a wave of glitter towards him and those surrounding him. Cleo blew him a kiss and shook her breasts. His face turned bright red as his buddies hooted and hollered around him. Cleo's attention hung briefly on the Birios, who was standing in the back, quietly taking in the show. Cleo spun around and shook her thong-covered ass, Taryn making a few mock slaps against her cheeks. After a few more minutes of this show, Jim came in, speaking into the microphone. Let's hear for Crimson and Pearl. Cleo gave a bow, collecting the cash on the small stage. She turned to Taryn. Pearl? Taryn snickered. You didn't expect to use our real names, did you? The Birios approached the two. Pardon me, girls. I represent someone who might be interested in acquiring your service full-time. Taryn beamed. Full-time? Like how? He handed both girls a card with a number on them. Full-time as in you girls making real money, not scratch here. Listen, Cleo rebuked, this is not what I do. The Birios nodded. I feel you. Honestly, both of you are exactly the sort of girls I'm looking for. He turned to Taryn. but you seem pretty eager compared to your friend. Very eager, Taryn giggled. So like, how much are you talking, big guy? Taryn teased. Talking about sometimes making 20 grand in an evening, he smiled. Give that number a call. Ask for Mimi. Nibirios turned and headed toward the door. As he passed the awkward fellow, Cleo noticed Nibirios whispering something in Jim's ear. Jim gave him a concerned look, but before they could discuss any further, Nibirios had left the room. The awkward man now approached Cleo. So, how much for some private time? Cleo was suddenly a deer in headlights before Taryn quickly swooped in. Sorry, babe. She's not for sale. Taryn stood and took his hand. But I am. If you're looking to get into me, then I'm $2 grand. More for extras. Taryn winked. $2 grand. The man thought for a moment. What kind of extras? Taryn smiled. We could discuss that in private. Taryn purred. The man nodded. All right, you better be good. Taryn smiled, taking his hand. I'm better than good. The man and Taryn walked off, Taryn fawning over him as the other men milled about the room, drinking, chatting, and smoking. Cleo slowly looked around the room for her bra when Jim rushed over, snatching the cash from her hands. Bounce! Jim shouted before vanishing out of the room. Cleo had no idea what he was talking about at first. Cleo tried to decipher what he meant and wondered if she should also warn Taryn. Oh, fuck you, Taryn shouted from the back room. You're a cop? Cleo's stomach dropped and she made a mad dash to the doorway, but 5 uniformed officers blocked the door as they stormed in from a hallway. Jim was already in cuffs, his face on the floor of the hallway. Cash all around him. An officer yelled, No one move, this is a sting. Cleo tried to run, but to her dismay, an officer slapped cuffs on her. A few moments later, Jim, Taryn, and Cleo were all lined up. Cleo had her head down, hair over her face as she sat next to Taryn. Fucking cops, Taryn grumbled. Cleo leaned over to look at Jim past Taryn. You knew. That big guy tipped me off, Jim grumbled. Taryn whispered, Wish you told me. Jim scoffed. Just keep your mouth shut. Cleo was nearly choking on tears. I've never been arrested before. Oh, Guardian. They're after the Johns, not us. They don't approve you did anything other than strip. Taryn tried to comfort Cleo. That's not illegal. And you? Cleo asked. Taryn sighed. I'll probably be charged with prostitution. Oh, my Guardian. Cleo shuddered. I'll be fine. Taryn smiled. Don't worry. Cleo frowned. Oh. Cleo felt a knot in her throat. What was going to happen to her? Would her parents find out? Tears filled her eyes as doubt and worry crept over her. I'm so sorry I got you wrapped up into all this, Taryn apologized. Cleo nodded. You and me both. Her blood ran cold as she heard a familiar voice. 10 Johns, 2 dames, and somehow you guys even managed to catch the pimp. Palm exclaimed happily. I smell promotion. Good to hear, Captain Palma. The awkward man, apparently the undercover cop, said flatly, That's going to be Deputy Chief soon enough. Officer Simmons. Palma chuckled. Palma's face turned serious for a moment. But remember, men, it's up to us to keep the scum out of community. After Palma said this, he grinned again. A few of the other officers laughed. The redhead goes by Crimson, Captain Palma. Officer Simmons announced. No shit, Palma snickered. The pale-haired girl went by Pearl, but she didn't solicit me, Simmons announced. Very original girls. Palma sneered as he walked over to the women. Cleo couldn't bear to look up and stared at Palma's boots and a glimpse of his black wings as hot tears prickled her eyes. I know Crimson, Palma said, picking up Taryn's face. Hi again, Taryn. Hi, Captain, she announced. Finally got you in the act, you little slut. Palma boasted. Taryn shot him a grin. Were you calling little? She thrust out her large bust. Palma roughly grabbed one of her breasts, wiping the smile off of Taryn's face. Yeah, you're pretty big, baby. MMM, they don't even feel fake. No wonder these guys paid out so much. And a blonde chick, huh? What's Pearl charged the party? Taryn winced as his gloved hand tugged roughly at her sensitive skin. More than you can afford. Palma laughed. Oh, really? He turned to Cleo. Well, Pearl, what's the going rate for your ass? No sale, Cleo said roughly, trying to hide her voice. Palmer was silent for a moment. He let go of Taryn and lifted up Cleo's chin. Holy shit. Cleo? Azrael, Cleo said coldly. Palmer laughed and turned around to face the rest of the officers. Boys, this is what I call true justice. Remember that bird I told you all about? That little skank who said I raped her after I dumped her? None of the officers answered, but he held their attention nonetheless. Well, here she is. He motioned to Cleo. Isn't she a hottie? While Palmer was on his tirade, Taryn looked at Cleo. You know him? Cleo's eyes didn't leave Palmer's back. Yes, she hissed. In high school, we went on a date, and he sexually assaulted me. Taryn's eyes went wide. Wait, he's a guy you told me about? Cleo frowned. I told you about him? Taryn nodded. Yeah, we were drinking. Didn't you spit his load back into his face? Before Cleo could confirm, Palmer grabbed Cleo and brought her to her feet. Now you all can see why I was so head over heels for this broad. The other officers let out a catcall, or two. Cleo looked away in shame, hoping her hair was hiding her face. She was only in her G-string, her hands cupped behind her and her breasts exposed. No one offered her anything to cover up. Palmer smiled. Take Crimson and Big Jim in. I'm going to get a confession out of Pearl here, booked the other two. When the video ended, a message scrolled up as if it were film credits. Elijah, I thank you for the information. As you can see, I have passed it on to the press. Your name was not provided, only mine. If I find any more information regarding Farnsworth's handling of the situation, I will advise you immediately. I can confirm that the top brass is furious that this information has been released, and they are working on damage control. I hope I can count on you in the near future, should I need something more than just data. Sincerely, Persephone. Jack smiled. I don't know who this phone is, he chuckled, but I like them. Of Night and Day, Chapter 10. Saren stood in the now open doorway, staring down at Yuki, his nerves shot as he gazed down into her eyes. Yuki looked up, her cheeks flushed as an awkward tension grew between them. Saren tried to move his hands around for Yuki, desperately trying to signal to her about the dream. I had this dream, he tried to explain. Saren struggled to determine what hand gestures he should use. You and I, he tried to point between them. Yuki walked up to Saren, and without missing a beat, she placed her hands on his shoulders, pulling herself up and pulling him down to her. Saren got the hint, lowering down on his haunches, his own cheeks flushing. I'm not sure if we're still dreaming, he chuckled. Yuki gave him a warm smile. It sure feels like we are. Yuki whispered softly. I can't believe I'm about to do this. Do what? Saren asked, without warning. Yuki pressed her lips to Saren's and they embraced. As they exchanged a passionate kiss, Yuki felt more than she expected. A connection, firm and powerful, burned into her heart and mind. Yuki was not alone in this. Their passions grew more intimate. A powerful connection was forged between Yuki and Saren at this moment. All she knew was that they needed one another. Soon they crashed against Yuki's bed, both missing it and winding up on the floor next to it. Yuki could no longer tell where her mind began and Saren's ended. The next morning, Yuki woke up completely nude. She expected to find herself cold as she was laying on the floor, but instead, she was wrapped in a warm blanket of some kind, a red blanket. Touching the blanket caused it to stir on its own, and soon she felt a warm body press against her, a heavy and well-muscled arm draping over her slight shoulders and holding her close. Soon she realized the red blanket was not a blanket at all, but Saren's large fleshy wings wrapped around her, holding her close. She felt safe with his wings holding her. Yuki closed her eyes and leaned back against Saren's chest, a shiver of delight running through her. Her feathers ruffled as the shiver passed through her, causing Saren to shift as well. She admired his forearm and bicep that laid on her. For a nurse, Saren's upper body was amazingly sculpted. Saren pulled Yuki closer to him with his wings and smiled at her. opening one eye slowly. Mourning my mate. Embarrassment took hold of Yuki as she rolled around to face him, looking into his yellow eyes. Her arms reached out and encircled his neck instinctively. That was... She closed her eyes and hummed to herself, and she nuzzled her head against his shoulder, her hand idly moving over his smooth, scaled skin, despite the apparent height difference. Yuki realized a large degree of this came from Saren's legs. His feet were not constructed the same way as her own. This led to much less difficulty in the pair's coupling than she had initially expected. Yuki found everything lined up well enough for her to still kiss Saren while they copulated. Saren smiled at her warmly, his arms pulling her closer still, his smooth wings covering the rest of her as they lay on the floor, where their passions had ended. Yuki recalled the night and hummed again, the memory of last night's passions with Saren creeping over her body, memories of Saren's body against hers echoing in her mind. To her surprise, she felt the same sensations from Saren, making the strange memory echo in her once more. Gaining control of herself, she looked to Saren and gingerly kissed him on the cheek. "Saren, why is it that I can feel you?" Yuki whispered. It was the only way she could describe the alien connection the pair now shared. Saren beamed. "The lover's sensation? I meant the emotion." Yuki chuckled. "Not the motion." "Well, that is what I meant," Saren grinned. "It's rarely felt unless it's between soulmates." A sinking feeling crept over Yuki as the gravity of her actions caught up to her. Soulmates. Reality rudely entered the situation. It was not a dream, after all. The fairly innocent flirting from the previous day had now placed Yuki in a precarious situation, all from a sudden, passionate moment. What did she expect? That she'd make love and move on? Chills and thoughts of Aphod began to register in her mind. Aphod had been furthest from her mind the past several hours. Now all she could think of was his shocked face. She saw an image of Aphod pointing at her. "You're sick. Perverted. A dragon. What were you thinking?" Yuki struggled for a moment before Saren's claws gently combed through her hair. "That is what we are," Saren's voice calmed her. "No one can stand between our bond. No one. It's nothing to be frightened of," he assured. No. Yuki said, frowning at Saren. "I'm from another planet. You're a dragon. How can you feel this way about me, Saren?" Yuki's eyes pleaded with his. Saren's eyes locked on hers, and he smiled. "The difficult part is over, Yuki. We are mates now. Oh, guardian." Yuki said softly as she tried to push herself away from him. No. Saren. She looked at his happy expression. "Oh, what have I done?" "We've both done it." Saren sat up, propping himself up on his side, his hand holding Yuki's, his wings still wrapped around her protectively. "We shared a moment, and at that moment," he smiled, "it transcended all boundaries." Yuki swallowed hard. "Are we married?" "By the laws of night." Saren chuckled. "By your definition, yes." His yellow eyes had a strange level of understanding to them. Saren ran his claws through her hair, the tension slowly slipping from Yuki's muscles. "Saren," she said softly, trying to find the best way to explain herself. Her eyes scanned his smiling face, her heart sinking. Saren's tail wrapped around her waist, and she held the tip at her navel. "When I spoke of my husband in our dream, you do realize I'm still Dash?" Saren gave her a nod. "You're still legally bound to him, yes?" Yuki looked down, nodding. Saren lifted her chin. "There's no reason to feel any shame. You acted as your heart dictated." He smiled at her again. "I know you feel nothing for him." "How do you know that?" Yuki frowned. "Because our hearts are one," Saren reassured with a smile. Yuki heaved a sigh. "This isn't fair to him, though." "It was not fair to you to remain with him." Saren's eyes closed as a smile grew. "Though I suppose I'm biased." Yuki couldn't help but smile at him. "Our hearts are one, huh?" Saren nodded. "If that's the case," Yuki said, settling closer to him, "if you know how I feel about my husband, what do you feel for—" Yuki's hand had touched Saren's broad chest as a sinking sensation of loss overtook her. Despair filled her own chest as she found a lump fill in her throat as she tried to speak. Tears leaked from Yuki's eyes as Saren's hand grasped hers. "Oh, Saren." Yuki barely managed to choke out. Saren looked down, his gaze focused on Yuki's hand and his, I hope there is no jealousy. Yuki pursed her lips as she tried to fathom the hole that was punched into Saren's heart at the loss of his mate. While the sorrow was deep, there was something else. Something Yuki was far more familiar with. Resentment. Yuki looked at his eyes, her hand moving to his muzzle. Not jealous. Just, I'm angry at her. Saren's brow furrowed. I don't, Dash. You do, Yuki confirmed. Before the two could discuss further, the door opened. Saren's wings closed tightly around Yuki, drawing her closer against him and wrapping around her body completely. Dr. Terasuki's voice called out from the door. Saren, what are you doing in Yuki's quarters? A physical? Saren answered, hoping that a miracle would occur and Dr. Terasuki would take that answer and turn around and leave. A quick sniff from Dr. Terasuki and her tone shifted from that of a curious surprise to an accusatory tone. I smell pheromones, your pheromones. Saren swallowed hard, trying to find some method to escape the doctor's gaze. Yuki managed to pull herself up and peek her head out from behind Saren's wings. She smiled at Dr. Terasuki, waving. Dr. Terasuki's hand moved to the top of her snout, pinching the scales on top, her lip quivering and revealing her sharp canine teeth. Saren, please, for the love of the Guardians, tell me you did not mate with a primitive. Excuse me, Yuki exclaimed, pushing away from Saren, finally freeing herself from his embrace. Who exactly are you calling a primitive? Dr. Terasuki's eyes went wide as she stared down at the agitated Angel, Yuki's ruffled feathers and glaring eyes meeting her own. When did you learn to speak Nitin? Yuki opened her mouth but paused. I'm sorry, what? Dr. Terasuki approached her curiously. You're speaking in Nitin. Saren stood up, his wings wrapped around his body to hide his nudity. I don't have an explanation for that, Doctor. You see, we had a dream in Dash. Dr. Terasuki held up her hand. Before we discuss anything further, she glared at Saren and Yuki. Both of you get some damn clothing on. Yuki and Saren both blushed and rushed to their clothing, which was haphazardly tossed throughout the room. Dr. Terasuki left the room, slamming the door, though muffled. A fair amount of cursing could be heard from the other side of the door. Yuki turned to Saren in a sarcastic tone. I think that went rather well. Saren frowned. I fear for my future prospect at this hospital. Do you have a history of mating with the patients here, Saren? Yuki joked. Well, Saren confessed, Alia was a patient I treated initially. Yuki sighed heavily. Oh, Saren. She pulled her pants on, moving to her flight suit. She tossed the suit to Saren. Here, make those claws of yours useful. Can you cut the feet off of my flight suit? Saren caught the garment, looking it over. Oh, this has been to oblivion and back. He looked it over. Are these burn marks? Yuki frowned. I don't know. There's supposed to be a transmitter in there. Maybe it's damaged. Saren shrugged. Draw his claw with fabric near the ankle of the flight suit. Fairly tough material. And the booties of my flight suit will make serviceable shoes or boots, depending on how long you make them. Yuki laughed. Booties? Saren threw one for the flight suit to Yuki. Shoes attached to the ends of pants or suits. Yuki grinned. I guess you guys don't do footwear? She said, motioning to Saren's large clawed feet. Saren smiled as he cut the other boot. Not unless someone's stepping in chemicals, and I doubt they make rubber boots in your size here. Yuki looked over the boot Saren had finished cutting. The edges were a bit rough, but she merely rolled the rough cuts on themselves as she slipped her foot inside. And footwear solved for now. Saren finished removing the other foot from the suit. If you show these to Baron, he should be able to fashion you some new ones. Baron? Yuki asked. The tailor? Saren smiled. He enjoyed the challenge in making your pants, and he even took a special bit of pride in sizing a new dash Saren cut himself off. Well, that's for later. Yuki raised an eyebrow. Do you have a surprise for me? Saren nodded, moving towards the door. It won't be ready for a while, so let's just deal with the current situation. Current situation? Yuki asked. Saren took a deep breath. Yes, dealing with my very angry boss. A real dragon of a boss, Yuki mused. Saren opened the door only to see Dr. Terasuki's toe claws tapping impatiently on the ground. her arms crossed over her chest and her tail flicking back and forth. Dr. Terasuki's eyes immediately narrowed on Saren. For a moment, I thought you were both going to be going at it again, what with how long you were taking. I feel you're being a little harsh, Saren defended. I mean, she also wanted to mate with me. Dr. Terasuki growled and charged forward, her finger poking Saren firmly in the chest, her tail rising up behind her, and her wings held up in a pose that made the large dragon seem somehow even larger. No, Saren, no. No excuse can possibly rebuke what you've done. Saren's back at the wall as his eyes open wide in fright. You have mated with an alien, Saren, a primitive at that. Do you realize what you've done? The risks? The repercussions of this decision? A roar was in the back of Dr. Terasuki's voice as she chastised him. We were caught in the moment. Saren continued to defend. The moment. Dr. Terasuki roared, her tail slamming into the ground to emphasize her anger. Yuki rushed over. Okay, listen, I get it. Dr. Terasuki's head ratcheted towards Yuki in a motion so swift that Yuki nearly jumped out of her newly fashioned shoes. After her heart was no longer in her throat. A few moments passed, and Yuki managed to say, I know, okay? Dr. Terasuki paused her anger for a moment. Yuki took this time to compose herself. I have a husband, and I have no idea how to explain any of this to him. But I love Saren. The words tumbled out of her mouth, and her heart skipped another beat as she realized what she said and how she felt. I love Saren? Dr. Terasuki took a breath, removing her finger from Saren's chest as she turned to face him. Saren, why yes. Saren responded, his body no longer shaking. I am sorry, Dr. Terasuki said after a deep breath, for the anger and outburst. But I need you, she turned to Yuki, both of you, she turned back to Saren, to understand the gravity of the situation you've gotten yourselves into. Saren nodded. If our feelings weren't so strong, we never would have acted on them. Yeah, trust me, it's not a fetish of mine to be with a dragon. Yuki blushed, despite, now being with one. Dr. Terasuki sighed. I have so many calls to make. She shook her head. Maybe I should prepare my home for Yuki, Saren suggested. Dr. Terasuki's face now turned into a devilish grin. Oh? You think you two are actually leaving this hospital without a thorough health screening? Yuki and Saren both felt a chill run down their respective spines. What? They said in unison. Oh, I'm going to get you plenty of juice, she chuckled, because I will be drawing a lot of blood from both of you. Yuki frowned. I'm not too keen on needles. Dr. Terasuki turned to face him in the open doorway, a smug smile on her face. Oh, don't worry, Mrs. Carcade. She slowly closed the door as she spoke. I'm told I'm very gentle. Saren frowned as the door closed. She's not, though. I think I want to go back into the wilderness now, Yuki announced. After a few minutes, Yuki and Saren sat next to each other in a lobby. Both had multiple bandages on their arms. Saren even had one on his tail. Yuki frowned. I am so dizzy. She took so much blood. Saren whined. A literal whimper escaped his throat. I hate blood work so much. Another nurse with green scales and brown spots along them approached the pair, and he placed a purple bottle of juice next to each of them. Dr. Terasuki's in her element. Causing discomfort? Saren grumbled, popping the top of the juice bottle. Thanks, Shatler. Shatler couldn't help but laugh as he addressed Yuki. Here you are, Mississippi. Mrs. Yuki corrected. Twice over she thought to herself. The bottle, which had been average size in Saren's hand, appeared massive in hers. What is this? Nagane's juice? Nurse Shatler advised, to help her cover some of what she's drawn so far. Yuki unscrewed the top and took a sip. The flavor that burst onto her tongue was that of almost pure sugar. The juice was thick and heavy, and she could taste the pulp of some kind as it slid down her throat. Oh, Guardian! Could that be any sweeter? She had tasted candy with less sweetness in it. Saren snickered. You're not used such sweet fruit? Fruit is normally acidic, not... Yuki took another sip. Sugary sweet. Nurse Shatler chuckled. Well, there's no better way to recover from test-induced blood loss. He leaned down to the pair. Because in about 20 minutes, she's going to draw some more, he frowned, sorry. Saren and Yuki's faces both fell as the pair drank the sweet juice that would be sandwiched between the bitter testing. Yuki winced as Dr. Terasuki's needle slid beneath her skin once more. Be thankful your veins are easy to find, Dr. Terasuki said flatly as she connected a small vial to the needle, the vial filling with blood. Yuki shivered as her blood filled yet another vial. She could feel a strange satisfaction coming from the doctor as she worked. Doctor, why do you hate me? Yuki asked. I don't hate you, Dr. Terasuki admitted as she swapped out another vial. You could have fooled me. Yuki heaved a sigh. Dr. Terasuki removed the final vial and then needle, placing a small ball of fabric on Yuki's arm with medical tape. Holding it down, she moved to the vials and began to label them. My passion is healing the sick, helping those who believed they were at death's door, beating that door down, and tearing their screaming souls in the abyss of death and back to life. Yuki was stunned by the graphic image painted by the doctor. Every day I face a choice of what to do with my time. I prefer my time in the ER. As a surgeon, I can save lives. She looked out the door. Yuki immediately could sense she was thinking of Saren, and occasionally spare those close to the patient the pain of loss. Dr. Terasuki looked to Yuki. My task daily is that of life and death. So when I am assigned a patient who is facing no immediate threat of losing their life, Dr. Terasuki frowned, I feel unfulfilled. Yuki shifted on the medical table uncomfortably. You could be nicer about it. That's all. Dr. Terasuki got to her feet, removing her latex gloves and discarding them and the used needle in a trash bin. Whether I am nice or not doesn't matter to a hunter bleeding out on my table. Yuki frowned. About that, Doctor, can I ask a question? Dr. Terasuki turned to Yuki. If it is quick, why do you hunt so much? Why not farm? Yuki asked. Farm? Dr. Terasuki scoffed. When you woke up, your first meal was a bronzy steak. Do you know what a bronzy is? Yuki shook her head. It's an animal weighing on average 9,000 kilograms. They are territorial and have 3 spear-like horns on the top of their heads. Their entire head has a neck frill behind it that is solid bone. Bulls can grow to be almost 11,000 kilos, and when they're that large, there is no paddock that can hold them. She shook her head. We can barely keep them out, and they're the small ones. The small ones? Yuki asked, shocked. Dr. Terasuki nodded. You Dei are lucky. For you, your world is free to explore and traverse. For us, monsters lurk in the wilds. The best we can do is put up walls that are big enough to fend them off. And even then we have to man defenses if a Rouge herd charges towards the city. She shook her head. The last time it happened in Cairo, a Longovertis herd crashed through the south wall and trampled thousands in their homes. What's a Longovertius? Yuki asked. A grim laugh escaped Dr. Terasuki's lips. The ground shakes when their herds move. They weigh on average 68,000 kilos and stand up to 40 meters tall, she frowned. When a herd of 60 of them starts moving, there is not much that can stop them. Yuki frowned. I can't even wrap my head around how huge that is. Stick around long enough, Dr. Terasuki explained. You'll see one. You can't miss when a herd walks by, she sighed. But falling a Longovertis can feed a city for days. So as you can imagine, hunting them is an important task for those brave enough to risk everything so that we can survive. Yuki frowned. And I thought that on Night the most terrifying creatures were the dragons. After a battery of tests, Dr. Terasuki addressed Saren and Yuki together once more. Well, the preliminary blood work doesn't show either of you contracting any diseases that will immediately kill you. Her eyes never left her tablet. The remainder of the test will have to wait until next week. In the meantime, I suggest you do not leave the city. Yuki frowned. I hadn't planned on it. Dr. Terasuki scoffed as she turned to Saren. You likely will want to leave at some point. Saren frowned. I don't see why. Dr. Terasuki shrugged. Not my business, she turned. I'll let you know when I hear anything, and if either of you are in any mortal danger. Yuki, come back here tonight. Your physical therapist will be by in the morning to do a preliminary workup on the state of your wings. Yuki nodded. Thanks, Doctor. With that, Dr. Terasuki left. Saren sighed in relief. Hungry? Starving. Yuki smiled. Great. Saren shouted, hopping off the table. I know the perfect place. Yuki had to yet again reassess her personal biases as she walked into what could best be described as a typical diner. Saren held the door, grinning ear to ear as she walked in. As she entered, the entire diner's conversation died at the same moment, all attention focused on Yuki as she walked inside. Saren closed the door behind her, walking by her side and scanning the room. Yuki could sense he was nervous, but more so, she felt a growing curiosity from those inside the diner. A dragon, shorter than Saren, with dark blue scales, approached the pair. He was a younger fellow and wore an apron with multiple pads and pencils shoved into the front pockets. Saren, the young fellow asked. Saren nodded. Hello, Chaz, he forced a smile. Table for two? Chaz looked between the pair, turning his attention back to Saren. Is Shia? Saren nodded. Yes, she's a Dei Angel. Her name is Yuki. Saren tried to push through the conversation normally. Yuki, this is Chazik. He works here at the diner. Yuki smiled. Nice to meet you. It talks. Chaz gasped. Yuki's eye twitched and she gritted her teeth. Chaz frowned. So sorry. I'm surprised you, the awkward lad frowned. I think your usual table is open, Saren. So how's about I get you two seated? Probably best, Saren said, his smile fading as Chaz led the pair into the diner. As they left the front, conversation started up again. Each table that they passed seemed to be discussing one thing. However, Yuki, how did she get here? What is she doing with Saren? Did she speak to Chaz? And does she eat normal food? Were among the questions which she overheard. As Chaz sat the two down, Yuki looked over the menu, noticing no prices, but also noticing she could read the text on the menu. Saren sighed. Sorry, I didn't expect you to be treated like Saren searched for a word. Yuki took a shot in the dark, purposefully using a Dei word. A freak? An embarrassed Saren nodded. Yuki continued in her native Dei tongue. Saren, you just understood Dei. Saren blinked to her, his brow furrowed with an effort. He spoke in Dei as well. I can understand when did I? How is this possible? Yuki asked, still in her Dei tongue to avoid as many suspicious ears. Saren shifted in his seat, eventually rubbing his head and smiling awkwardly to Yuki. I don't know, my mate. A shiver ran through Yuki as he said, my mate, her cheeks reddening. Maybe Dr. Terasuki will have some insight for us. Saren smiled, turning to Chaz as he provided the pair with glasses of water. Thank you, Chaz. The usual Saren? He smiled. Saren's face fell again. I think I'll try something different. Give us a few minutes. Chaz's smile faded as well as he gave a knowing nod. Yuki noticed a shared sorrow between the pair. So you were a regular? Saren nodded. I'm not sure what got folks more stunned my arrival or yours. He smiled, but his eyes were mournful. I used to come here all the time with Alia. Yuki decided that sitting across from Saren in the small booth was a bad idea at this point. So she got up and slid next to him. Then why bring me here? Saren's smile continued despite his wet eyes. The food is great here. Yuki's hand moved to Saren's, squeezing it tightly. How long ago did she pass? I don't dash, Saren began. Saren, if you don't talk about it, you won't be able to overcome it. Yuki frowned. Saren heaved a sigh, looking to Yuki with a mournful expression. I feel embarrassed. Yuki frowned. Oh, Saren. Saren closed his eyes. I should be long finished with my mourning, but... Saren, how long ago did she dash? 12 years, Saren blurted out, his hand squeezing Yuki's. Yuki pursed her lips. It was so long ago. Why was Dr. Terasuki so concerned with you returning to work? Saren frowned, reached the collar of his shirt, and pulled it open, revealing a large scar on his neck. Yuki touched it, causing Saren to flinch slightly. As Yuki touched the scar, the room shook. Yuki's ears began to ring, and a bright light filled her vision. In an instant, Yuki felt herself transported to a hospital. Alarms were blaring, and there was shouting from every direction. It did not take Yuki long to notice whose eyes she was looking through. Saren's vision was shifting back and forth as he ran a gurney down a long hallway. into an operating room. Another doctor that Yuki had not seen with gray scales looked down to see a woman with yellow scales and multiple holes in her arm. "What happened?" the doctor asked. Saren's voice hitched in his chest a moment before he sputtered, "A scavenger attack." The doctor looked up to Saren and shook his head. "I need another nurse to help me out. Saren, hang back!" He held up his hand. Saren slowed his run, coming to a walk and then stopping in the hallway. A sense of confusion and loss overtook him as he felt the desperation in the other room. His heart was in his throat as alarms continued to ring in his head. He turned to face a glass window. Standing in it was a yellow-skinned woman with blue eyes, smiling at him. Blood covered most of her below the neck, some having stained her nostrils and mouth. It was his mate, Alia. She reached out to him from the window's reflection, a grin on her face. Saren's fist clenched hard in his palm, and he rushed into the room. No one was inside, and in a sudden act of desperation and confusion, Saren hurled a trash bin at the cabinets. "Why?" he shouted. Every other hunter knows to run. They know to fly as hard and fast away from scavengers as they can. He slammed his fist down onto the examination table inside, falling to his knees, his body shaking as tears clouded his vision. The ringing in his ears grew worse as he looked to the window from the other side. Alia smiled again at him, a proud smile on her face. The same unmoving smile. "Why were you so happy?" Saren shouted. "You were dying. You attacked the scavenger. Why?" He tried to stand but slipped. As he did, he looked down and spotted a scalpel on the ground. He narrowed his eyes, picking up the scalpel. "I'll ask you myself." He drew the scalpel over his neck. A sinking feeling came over him as he felt dizzy and weak, the wetness pouring out his neck, only just now registering. The door to the room opened. Dr. Terasuki rushed towards him. Saren. Everything went black. Yuki opened her eyes, pulling her hand from the scar. "Oh, Saren, I tried to join her," Saren confessed. "Why? Why would you do that to yourself?" Yuki asked, and why was she smiling? A look of confusion came over Saren's face. But before he could answer, a black scaled hand soon fell on the table, attached to a huge woman with black and gray scales. Shimmering orange eyes examined the two. "Saren, glad you're out of the house," she beamed. "Feeling better?" She wore heavy leather armor with metal studs and thick fingerless gloves. She smelled like sweat and game, and Yuki couldn't help but notice a smear of blood on her bare bicep, which was sizable, to say the least. Saren shook his head. Yuki looked at the large woman. "Sorry we were having a conversation." The woman nodded. "Yeah, I could feel him from across the room." She sat down across from them. "Glad you're out and about, Saren nodded. "This is Marika," he motioned to the woman. "Marika, this is Yuki." Yuki was not too pleased with what was going on. Her normally very pleasant and upbeat Saren was rapidly spiraling into a depression in front of her, and this woman had just interrupted. "Pleased to meet you. Listen, we were having a private conversation." Marika peeked an eyebrow. "No offense. Yukke dash," she cleared her throat. "Yuki," she managed. "But I've known Saren longer than you." Yuki frowned. "I understand that, but if you could give us a moment." Marika turned to Saren. "Saren, what's with the angel?" Saren looked up to Marika, his eyes distant. Yuki hugged his arm tightly, glancing up to him with a pleading look. Saren turned to Yuki, and as he did she gave an over-the-top smile. Saren, at that moment, couldn't help but chuckle, looking to Yuki as he spoke. "She's my mate." Marika was silent as Saren affirmed this, looking between the pair. Yuki could sense some discomfort coming from Marika and spoke freely. "You don't have to stare." She pulled herself up his arm and kissed Saren on the cheek. Saren's smile doubled, and he beamed back to Yuki. Yuki felt the discomfort vanish, replaced with relief from Marika. "Whatever makes you happy, Saren, makes all of us happy. I'm glad you're on the mend." She moved to get up. "Oh, Tass is going to go over her hunt. If you want to hear about it. She got a really big kill, top of the junior division." Saren's smile weakened slightly, but Yuki's squeezing of his arm pulled him back from his sadness again. I think I would like that." Marika beamed, a warm smile moving over her face. "Good to have you back, Saren." As Marika left, Yuki turned to Saren. smiling. "So, where did you go?" Saren's eyes were downcast despite still smiling. A dark place. "Well," Yuki began, "you're not going back there, okay?" A tear rolled down Saren's cheek as he turned to Yuki, his smile growing. "Okay, so," Yuki began, reaching up to his face to rub his tear away, "I have 2 more questions." "Go ahead," Saren beamed once more. "What is good here?" She motioned the direction Marika wandered off to. "And is that an old flame?" Saren laughed loudly. No, he shook his head, quieting down. "She's Alia's friend, best friend you could say." His smile weakened. "Probably why she elected to have Dash." Marika stood up, clapping. "Okay, everyone. Hunters and you lazy moochers." This elicited some laughter. Yuki turned confused. Normally someone acting this way on Dei would be lambasted as lording over everyone. But it seemed as though Marika meant no ill will by the comment. Additionally, Yuki could feel a sense of camaraderie from her. Tassel just broke a junior division record today. Marika announced, beaming with pride, 11 years old, mind you, and she has managed to shatter the record in her division. Likely one of many records to shatter going forward. Yuki looked to see an athletic girl, about her own height and size, stand up next to Marika. She had yellow scales and light blue eyes. Yuki could swear she had seen the girl's face or snout somewhere before. She was unsure where. The young girl, Tassel, was soon lifted onto a table by Marika, as if proudly presenting Tassel to the entire room. "Let's hear about the hunt." Tassel blushed, looking around the room. "It wasn't a big deal," she smiled. "It was just a bronzy. He was an old bull." There was laughter through the diner, as everyone's attention was now on Tassel. "Show us," one patron of the diner shouted. Tassel smiled. "Okay, but pay attention. I'm only doing it once." She spread her wings wide on the table, lifting on one leg and holding the other out as if she was in flight, because it was kind of scary. Yuki watched, but as she saw Tassel mimicking the flight, she felt strange. Dizziness began to creep over her, and as it did, she glanced at Saren, noticing his eyes were distant, his attention wrapped on Tassel. "Saren," Yuki managed before the dizziness struck her full force. She grabbed hold of the seat in front of her and looked to Tassel. As she did, her vision tunneled. At the center of that tunnel vision was a scene of flying over large plains. Yuki's eyes widened, and as they did, the scene before her grew, and soon she felt transported to that moment. A voice came from the left of her, an older woman shouting over the rush of air. "There's a slow one. Let's see what an Alia-born can really do." Tassel. The scene shifted as if the camera filming it was nodding, and soon the scenery of the plains and ground rushed towards Yuki's eyes. She watched in shock as a stampeding herd of large-scale creatures thundered across the plains. Their very footsteps shook the trees they ran past and kicked up a heavy cloud of dust. At the tail end of that dust was a slower animal, looking more weathered than the others. It had 3 large horns on the front of its head and a beak-like mouth. Its skin was brown and green, but the feet were covered in muck. It ran with a limp, its right front leg not propelling it forward as well as the others. Its trunk-like tail wagged back and forth, working hard to keep the creature balanced as it ran. The scene was soon filled with the creature's shoulders, and Yuki watched as her arms reached out towards the neck. But they weren't her arms. They were Tassel's yellow-scaled arms, reaching out with powerful claws and digging into the sides of the large creature's neck from behind. It roared out in pain, slowing down but its head flailing back. As it did, Tassel's arms pushed her away before the massive bony shield on the top of its head could pin her down to its shoulders. Now higher in the air, Tassel's viewpoint watched as the lumbering creature slowed, blood gushing from the wounds in its neck, finally collapsing onto its chest, sliding to a halt. In an instant, Yuki was now back in the diner, her heart hammering in her chest. The entire diner was silent for a moment. Saren's gaze shifted, and he smiled warmly at Tassel, who was no longer mimicking her flight, though she did appear exhausted. Climbing down from the table with Marika's help, Marika laughed, 2 tones. The entire diner erupted in applause, and Tassel's cheeks blushed, turning orange as they did so. Yuki turned to Saren, shock on her face. "Saren, what was that?" Saren turned to Yuki, a bronzy. For a junior hunter, killing one of that size unassisted is really something. "No," Yuki tried to compose herself. Sarah and I saw it. The whole thing, from Tassel's perspective. I thought only we could do that. Well, anyone can share a memory if they want, Sarah nodded. Tassel said she'd only share the story once. Wait. Yuki took a deep breath, her heart finally calming. You mean you could just share an experience, a memory like that? Saren smiled. If you're looking, yes. You need to be expecting a story, of course. Yuki was shocked, looking down at the menu, confused. It seemed easier for me to look at your memory. Saren frowned. What memory? I saw how you got that scar. Yuki frowned. You couldn't tell? Saren shook his head. No, but that explains a bit. Saren's face fell. Yuki motioned to the menu once more. Let's eat. Saren's smile returned as he pointed to a portion of the menu. While everyone's likely going to be ordering bronzy right now, he chuckled, their longa verde steaks are the best. Saren landed in front of the hospital once more, the sun setting in the distance, turning the sky a deep crimson. Yuki sighed as she examined the hospital doors. I'm getting tired of this place. Saren gave a nod. I agree, but I cannot take you home yet. Oh, is it a messy bachelor pad? Yuki joked. Once again, Saren's smile weakened. You could say that. Yuki blocked Saren's path, holding both of his hands and looking up to him. Saren, I won't mind seeing pictures of her. Saren's brow furrowed. That makes one of us. Yuki hugged him tightly. Oh, Saren. Saren hugged her back, and once the two had broken their embrace, they walked in to find Dr. Terasuki waiting for them. Saren, you can head home now. I need to discuss some things with Mrs. Carcade. The doctor seemed very agitated, more so than usual. Yuki turned to Saren. I'll see you tomorrow? And every day afterward, he chuckled. Yuki smiled at him as he leaned down to kiss her. I love you, Yuki said, her cheeks blushing. Saren smiled back. I love you too, my angel. Yuki's heart skipped a beat as she watched him leave. Dr. Terasuki's hand was now on Yuki's shoulder. We need to talk in private. Yuki frowned, turning to Dr. Terasuki. Her eyes narrowed on Yuki's. Now, she growled. Yuki felt a sinking feeling in her gut, but followed the doctor nonetheless. As she walked into her living quarters, she began, Listen, I know we rush into things, but in my defense, my heart was in control and I don't regret it. Yuki turned to Dr. Terasuki, and her blood ran cold. Yuki's heart skipped several beats as a cold sweat overtook her. Dr. Terasuki's hand clutched a laminated book, with pitting now on the lamination from the doctor's claw marks. Her eyes narrowed coldly on Yuki as she held up the book in full view. Explain this survival in space book to me? More specifically, this chapter? The book was hurled to Yuki's feet, and as she feared, the bold lettering on the front informed her of exactly what page the book was open to. Night Dragons. Of Night and Day, Chapter 11, Jax and Jophiel stood inside a large room with exercise equipment. The pair had just finished running on a set of treadmills. Jax grunted as he swallowed a large gulp of water from a water bottle. The first week of being back on homeworld is always a bird, Jax exclaimed. Jophiel nodded, drying himself off. And to top it off, we have to smile for the cameras. Jax scoffed, blood money. Enough blood money to retire on, Jophiel stated. Jax glared at Jophiel. Did she mean that little to you? Jax, what do you want me to say? Jophiel shook his head. It's a damn shame what happened to Yuki. It is, okay? But the company is well aware that they fucked up. We're getting money for it. And you know what? It's a decent chunk of change. Not to mention whatever commission we make off the minerals. Jax growled. It was Yuki. My Yuki. Jophiel pushed Jax against the wall. Jax, I get you and her might have had a thing for each other, but for her memory's sake and yours, cut that shit out. Jax pushed Jophiel away from him. I wouldn't have done anything until after she left her limp-dicked husband. It's talk like that'll ruin her good name, Jax. Jophiel shook his head. Just accept it. Yuki is dead. There isn't anything you or I can do to bring her back. Jophiel walked toward the locker room. Just take the money and move on with your life. He looked back to Jax as he closed the door behind him. It's what Yuki would have wanted. Jax slammed his fist on the wall, glaring at the locker room door. I might not be able to bring her back, he grinned, but I can sure as shit make those who left her for dead pay. Outside Farnsworthing's obsidian skyscraper, a number of reporters with cameras and handheld camcorders have mobbed the entrance. Mr. Sorejoy slowly crosses the lobby, adjusting his tie, giving the smaller Cleo a sidelong glance off to his right. I thought you said the press wouldn't be here? Sorejoy questioned. Cleo frowned. They're supposed to be at SMAC for your press conference. Sorejoy turned to Cleo smugly. Luckily, you're not the only skilled person in my employ. Sorejoy did not miss a beat as he made his way towards the doors. Cleo slowed slightly. Mr. Sorejoy, are you Dash? Keep up, Cleo. Sorejoy smiled. You'll miss the show? Show. Cleo grimaced but kept pace with Sorejoy as the two crossed the halfway point of the lobby. After the halfway point, a number of angels in riot gear and what appeared to be gas masks descended upon reporters, some being knocked out right away from the descending military-garbed angels, others getting held on the ground while their hands were cuffed behind their backs. One reporter ran, dropping his camera and pulling a clear mask from his side. He affixed it to face and jumped into the air, only to have a final riot gear wearing Angel land square on his back, knocking him to ground in a brutal takedown. This angel had a skull affixed to the center of his mirrored riot mask, with a pair of fiery wings on either side of the small metal emblem. Without halting his stride, Sorejoy walked out of the building, a smirk on his face as a uniformed angel's beat berated and arrested the would-be reporters. Muckrakers. Sorejoy snickered to himself as he made a point to kick the camera out his path. Cleo frowned as they approached the largest of the uniformed angels. He removed his skull-bearing riot gear mask as the reporter beneath him cried out in pain. Cleo's breath hitched as she realized that the large angel was indeed Police Chief Palma. You broke a rib, you oaf, the reporter cried out. Palma's gruff voice soon answered the fallen reporter. Oh, did I? He grinned at the man in laying pain on the ground. All I was doing was protecting a valued member of this community from your harassment. He turned to the other officers. Book M for fleeing the scene of crime, resisting arrest, harassment, and verbally abusing a police officer. Palma emphasized this last part by walking toward an audio recorder and crushing it beneath his boot. Thanks for the prompt arrival, Palma, Sorejoy said as he and Cleo made their way towards the limousine. Anytime, Mr. Sorejoy. Palma grinned at Cleo. Hey, Cleo. Palma was the only greeting she offered as she found the door to the limousine opened by Nibirios, wearing his chauffeur's cap to hide his face from the officers. Pleasant as always, cutie. Palma winked at her as she disappeared inside the limousine. One reporter managed to get away from the other officers, running towards the street. Palma closed the distance between the pair and knocked the man to the ground with a firm punch to the chest. As the reporter crumbled to the ground, Palma descended upon him like a vicious predator, holding the man's face firmly to the pavement. Oh, Guardian, how I miss field work, he grinned, picking up the man's head and thrusting it down into the pavement. Book M, Palma announced as he stood up from the now unconscious man. Sorejoy gave a nod to Palma as he ducked into the limousine. I love my job. Palma grinned wickedly before sliding the riot mask back over his face and taking to the air. Cleo sat in measured silence in the limousine, staring out the window as Palma brutalized the reporter. Cleo? Sorejoy asked. Cleo turned to Sorejoy. Sorry, Mr. Sorejoy, just distracted. Sorejoy nodded. Palma does what I ask him and nothing more. He leaned back in his seat. Exactly how I prefer my subordinates. Cleo's violet eyes widened. Am I in that category? Sorejoy gave Cleo a nod. Until you prove yourself less than useful. Cleo, yes. But so far, you prove remarkably skilled at all your tasks. Thanks to your trust and investment, Cleo said, smiling as the limo began to move. I do not invest in things I do not think are worthwhile, Sorejoy stated. Then why would you invest in Farnsworthing? Cleo asked. Sorejoy narrowed his eyes. Excuse me? Cleo turned away, her lips pursed. Nothing. No. Sorejoy narrowed his eyes. It sounds like you have an opinion. Cleo glanced back at Sorejoy and cleared her throat. It's just that the quarterlies have come in, and SMAC is losing money hand over fist. Debt-to-income ratio has skyrocketed, shareholder equity has fallen, and the liabilities far outweigh any recent net income. Sorejoy's eyebrow rose. Granted, Cleo continued, the company has returned from the brink of bankruptcy since you've taken over as CEO. So you have improved the company so far, but still... Sorejoy's face was stone as his eyes scanned Cleo. You seem like you have more to say on the matter. Cleo frowned. I'm just your assistant. Perhaps I shouldn't have said anything. Well, you seem to know so much about Farnsworth's properties. Why not indulge me? He leaned forward. It's a long drive. So what are you asking me? Cleo glanced down her computer and back up to Sorejoy's withering gaze. Are you asking me what I would do if I were CEO? Sorejoy gave a nod. Break the conglomerate, Cleo announced. It's too big to manage as is. Spin it off into smaller entities. Keep a stake in each one. Have someone else manage SMAC as its least profitable. Sell off the Farnsworth Express Logistics Service, Feather News Network, and Farnsworth Entertainment. So you'd sell everything? Sorejoy chuckled. I'd delegate the load, Cleo explained. Multiple companies with multiple revenue streams that could sink or swim on their own. Sorejoy raised an eyebrow. Cleo decided to finish her musing. Maintaining a lion's share of the ownership of each company would still net me a prominent seat on the board of directors for all companies. But it would be easy to have 5 different CEOs running 5 distinct corporations compared to one managing all 5. Sorejoy leaned back, looking out the window. Sadly, none of that is an option for me. Cleo frowned. But it's a smart investment. Why couldn't Dash? Farnsworth is an investment, Sorejoy said as he looked at his own reflection in the limousine window. It's an obligation. Nabirios opened the limousine door and guided Sorejoy into the back door of the large hangar. There Director Buford met Sorejoy and Cleo, shaking Sorejoy's hand. We got the press in a meeting room for you, and our 2 surviving miners have been briefed. Sorejoy nodded. Good. They've been told of the bonus. Director Buford nodded. It's a generous bonus, considering the state of SMAC. Consider a marketing expense, Sorejoy grumbled. It's the least of our concerns at the moment. Director Buford turned his attention to Cleo. And Cleopatra Walters, Mr. Sorejoy's executive assistant. Cleo introduced herself. We spoke on the phone, he beamed to her. I hadn't expected you to look so beautiful. Cleo's gaze was that of ice as she continued. We'll be meeting with a pair of miners as their equipment is cleared and their commissions determined. Is that still on schedule? Director Buford's smile vanished and he nodded. That is, if you both follow me. He turned and led the pair down a long hallway. Sorejoy smiled at Cleo. Cleo returned the smile, grinning to herself as she tapped on her tablet. Jax and Joffiel were now wearing their uniforms, both looking increasingly uncomfortable. I'm not one for cameras, Joffiel admitted. I'm not one for useless publicity stunts that hurt our interests. Jax shot back. Joffiel turned to Jax and sighed. I'm sorry about what I said in the gym. Jax was silent. It could have happened to any of us. Joffiel shook his head. If it was you, wouldn't you want to know someone was on the way to rescue you? Jax questioned. Joffiel looked to the large plate glass window that separated the room they sat in with the lab on the other side. Honestly, Jax, he hesitated. I'd rather take the bullet. Inside the lab on the other side of the glass, imps in protective plastic suits walked around the large meteorite that Yuki had found initially. A large mechanical device rotated around the asteroid and blasted it with blue fluid. Dirt, debris, and rocks crumbled down against the wire mesh floor, the blackened fluid flowing into various containers. Over the speakers, Jax and Joffiel heard the imp technicians announcing their findings. Diamond rich, this one. Lots of microcrystals. This rock went through oblivion and back. One imp announced over the loudspeaker. A loud crash echoed to the speakers as a hunk of rock tumbled off of the meteorite. Jax and Joffiel sat up excitedly. You think it's a diamond? Jax asked as the technicians swarmed the hefty rock. That thing is huge. The largest ever found was over 4.5 kilos. Joffiel noted. Heard the miner who found it retired on commission alone. Jax looked at the rock the imps were now handling. Doubt it's that big. No. Joffiel shook his head, but if it is close, it would be a nice surprise. One last mega haul for Yuki, huh? Jax said, smiling wistfully. A gift from beyond the grave. Joffiel nodded. One of the imp technicians picked up the large clump and placed it in a device that showered it with blue liquid. After a few moments, a large white rock, with 3 smaller rocks, sat on the metal mesh. The technician moved it to a scale. That's a 2.27 kilogram diamond, and it is pure. Joffiel smiled. Thanks, Yuki. She knew how to pick him. Jax chuckled. Director Buford soon walked into the room, banging on the glass. Everyone, imps and the miners, stopped. Okay, people, we have a dog and pony show to start. He motioned to a podium that was being wheeled in front of the viewing window. Real simple. You two sit here, smile and wave. He turned to the window, looking at the lab imps, speaking through a handheld radio. You have all to your normal tasks, no slouching. Cameras are going to be on you. Look productive if you have nothing to do. A few imps gave a thumbs-up motion to Director Buford's orders. I want the world to see that we can run a tight operation. He turned to Jax and Joffiel. You two have your statements, yes? Jax and Joffiel nodded. Good. Director Buford barked. Now sit quietly while we get the press in here. He picked up the radio. Resume whatever the hell it was you were all doing. When this is all over, we can finally get back to our jobs. That job being? Jax asked. Director Burford narrowed his eyes on Jax, robbing the stars of their riches. He turned and walked out of the room. Several reporters filed in and took seats facing the window. Jax and Joffiel now sat in the front row, doing the same. Jax leaned over to Joffiel. How long was the director in the military? About 20 years in the Air Force before he got grounded. Joffiel frowned. No wars to fight. So, yeah, now here he is. Jax nodded. Sucks to have a clear purpose, only for it to vanish right in front of your eyes. Sorejoy and Cleo entered the room with Director Buford now, and as the two did, Jax's attention was grabbed by Cleo as she stood there in her light blue business suit and matching heels. Joffiel politely pushed Jax's chin up, so his mouth was closed. You got a thing for light hair. White, Jax sputtered. Joffiel nodded. The top executives get the prettiest girls, nicest cars, best of the best for them, he crossed his arms. Nothing like that for us working schmucks. White wings. I've never even seen someone with white wings, was all Jax could say as his eyes lingered on Cleo. Cleo looked up from her tablet, scanning the room for a moment before locking eyes with Jax. Jax turned to face the window swiftly, turning from Cleo, his face red. He looked at the cards he had in front of him. They were not the cards his boss gave him. Those had read to the tune of, Mr. Sorejoy, thank you for your compassion during this time. It is dangerous work we do, and it's comforting to know that you support the miners when a terrible accident like this occurs. However, in his hands, he held very different cards. Director Buford got up to the podium. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, I want to thank you for coming by. As you can see, we have successfully retrieved our 2 surviving miners, and they are here with us to answer a number of your questions. Before that, however, I'd like to present our current CO, Eric Sorejoy. Mr. Sorejoy made his way to the podium to a smattering of applause. A few flashes of cameras occurred as he stood behind the podium. Slightly smaller crowd than last time, he smiled. A few reporters laughed. Farnsworthing takes the situation that occurred at SMAC very seriously. We know that these miners risk their lives to provide us with minerals we have long since depleted on Dei. Without them, our industry would grind to a halt, and it's their sacrifice that keeps our economy moving forward, Sorejoy announced. Jax rolled his eyes, which merited a nudge in the ribs from Joffiel. Having said that, Sorejoy continued, I would like to announce a grievance commission. Pay the miners who lost a co-worker in the line of their daily operations. We have both Elijah Branch and Joffiel Hinterland as the first recipients of this generous compensation. If we can have each of them come up here, and if everyone here could give these brave men a round of applause, it would be appreciated. Joffiel stood alongside Jax as both made their way to the podium with the flashing of cameras and applause. Sorejoy took the time to shake each of their hands before returning to a seat set aside next to the podium. Joffiel addressed the podium first, placing his cards in front of him. It's hard going up there every day knowing that any number of things can go wrong. But it's made easier knowing that we always have support on the ground, both physically and financially, to help us get through those tough times. Jaffiel looked to Sorejoy. Thank you for the generous support. I'm proud to be a member of SMAC and the Farnsworth family. Jax sneered at Jaffiel as he stepped back, allowing Jax to step forward. Jax cleared his throat and looked at his cards. Mr. Sorejoy, I have to be completely honest. Jax turned to Sorejoy, a smug look on his face. I can tell you exactly what you can do with this money. You can dash. Holy shit. Jaffiel shouted as a loud shudder filled the other room. There was pandemonium inside the lab on the other side of the glass as a huge chunk of the meteorite fell onto the screen and had then tumbled onto the floor. There, in the center of the room, was a massive white rock with a blue material buried deep inside its milky haze. Sorejoy got his feet, his eyes wide. Cleo stared in shock for a moment before composing herself. One of the reporters shouted, "Is that whole thing a diamond?" Jax turned and was promptly pushed aside by a number of reporters who rushed to snap pictures from the other side of the glass. Sorejoy calmly walked to Jax, his hand resting on Jax's shoulder, giving a firm squeeze. "Well, Mr. Branch, you're about to become a very wealthy man," he turned to him, glaring daggers at Jax. "And you're never setting foot anywhere near a microphone again." Jax narrowed his eyes on Sorejoy before Sorejoy approached the glass as well, grinning wide. Cleo frowned, looking between Jax and Sorejoy, her brow furrowed as she wondered what was said between the two. "Someone get a scale," one imp shouted. Another imp responded, "Where can we get one big enough?" "It has to be over 200 kilograms at least," one imp said, hugging the giant rock, possessively nuzzling his face against it. "Finney, stop that," one of the technicians shouted. "I just want to be near it for a second." Finney's trailed off as his attention seemed wrapped by the blue haze inside. "It's so beautiful." Sorejoy turned to Director Buford. "I want to see my diamond." A few moments later, Cleo, Sorejoy, and Director Buford stood before the large rock, which had been mounted via straps to a mobile crane. Official weight, Finney's gasped, 226 kilograms. "What's the blue stuff inside?" Sorejoy asked. "Could be any number of things," Finney said. As Finney spoke, Sorejoy walked toward the diamond, placing his hand on it. "We can drill into it and take a core sample," Finney suggested. "I'm sorry." Sorejoy turned, narrowing his eyes. "Did you say you wanted to drill a hole in my diamond?" Director Buford laughed. "Some will have to be sheared off here and there, sir. A lot of the raw elements mar the surface." He approached it. "I've called in a team to evaluate the value of the gem, as well as give us some options for presentation. Have all of that sent to my assistant immediately." Sorejoy smiled. "This is most opportune indeed." He looked the diamond over once more. "Thank you, Mrs. Carcade. You've made this entire experience incredibly easy." Cleo looked from the diamond to Director Buford. "When can I expect that information?" "By the end of the day," he grinned. "Maybe sooner." Sorejoy was all smiles as he looked out the window of his limo as they drove back to Farnsworth headquarters. "Well, sir, you're in the papers." Cleo turned her tablet monitor to show Sorejoy a picture of him standing next to Jax and Jaffiel, and next to him a photo of the diamond. SMAC discovers diamond over 20x larger than the previous record. "Perfect," Sorejoy grinned. "Is there any mention of the fallen miner?" Cleo frowned, reading over the article. "Briefly, she's mentioned as the one who discovered the diamond. They have her noted as the late Yuki Carcade." "Excellent." Sorejoy beamed at Cleo. "With this diamond, the entire news circuit is going to be talking about this instead of our fallen miner. So you're just happy everyone has forgotten about her?" Cleo asked. Sorejoy scoffed. "Yes." Cleo frowned. "Did you know her, sir?" Sorejoy turned to window, changing the subject. "This diamond will solve a number of Farnsworth's issues. This is a very good day." Cleo frowned as limo came to a halt in front of Farnsworth Inc.'s headquarters. The door was open and Sorejoy stepped out. "Cleo, hold all my calls for the rest of the day. I have no further statements to make publicly." "Of course, Mr. Sorejoy," Cleo confirmed as she tapped her tablet a few times as she followed Sorejoy. Sorejoy was grinning ear to ear as he and Cleo made their way into the building and to the executive elevator. As it ascended the skyscraper, Sorejoy could not help but laugh to himself. "Something funny, sir?" Cleo asked. As the elevator reached the top floor, Sorejoy grinned. "Oh, just a phone call I cannot wait to make." "Very good, sir," Cleo said as she placed her tablet in its dock at her desk and began to type on the keyboard now. "I'll hold your calls for the rest of the day." Sorejoy gave Cleo a nod and walked into his office. He approached his black phone and picked it up, dialing a short series of numbers before he sat at his desk and leaned back in his large office chair. The line was answered. "Sorejoy, you prick," Albert Hoffman joked. "Is there a reason you're calling my direct line?" "I felt like we should discuss SMAC and Dei Mining Corporation's future prospects," Sorejoy said, grinning. "Finally ready to sell Daddy's gold nugget." "Huh, kid?" "Or, as I should call it, a golden turd," Hoffman laughed. "So have you seen the news, Hoffman?" Sorejoy asked. Hoffman was silent for a moment. "No, why?" "Why not check the trade for a second? I'll wait." Sorejoy smiled as he examined his well-manicured fingers. "What the fuck is this stunt?" Hoffman shouted over the phone. "Weighed in at over 200 kilos, Sorejoy grinned. "Give or take a pair of record-breaking diamonds." "You lucky bastard," Hoffman growled. "You just fall ass backward into whatever the hell you want, don't you?" Sorejoy poured an amber liquor from his desk into a small tumbler. "As if I would ever sell my company to you, Hoffman," he grinned. "All this being said and done, I'm sure you're going to be calling me Grand Patriarch by the end of the month, so play nice, Hoffman." With that, Sorejoy hung up the phone. Hoffman shouted into the phone. "Did you just hang up on me, you little prick?" Hoffman took a deep breath, followed by a pair of pills and a swig of some kind of alcohol. Hoffman then picked up a mobile phone and dialed a number. "Hello." A sweet voice came over the phone. Mimi speaking. "Mimi," he frowned. "It's Albert." "Hi, Al. What can I help you with tonight?" Mimi questioned. "I need some company. Had a bad day." Hoffman grumbled. "Is Taryn available?" "For you, babe?" "Always." The line went dead. Hoffman grumbled. "A night with a busty redhead should put me at ease." Sorejoy smiled as he looked out over the city, swirling the liquor in his glass as he surveyed the city below. "Finally, it's all coming together." He looked up to the sky, raising his glass. "To you, Yuki. Sorry, you had to die for everything to finally be together." A red phone on Sorejoy's desk rang. Sorejoy turned and walked over the phone. "Well, that's a nice cherry on top." Sorejoy picked up the phone. Sorejoy speaking. A voice crackles through the phone. "Hello? Hello, Mr. Sorejoy, can you hear me?" A slight smile crosses his face. "Galler, you can hear me? Good, good. I was afraid the connection would drop again. How are you?" Sorejoy's smile grew. "Excellent, Galler, and you?" "Oh, doing well, all things considered." Galler explained. Sorejoy gave a nod. "He's likely calling to tell me he's found a dead miner." Sorejoy thought to himself. "Best prepare my concerned voice. Then again, it will be satisfying to know that this fallen miner situation is finally dealt with once and for all." Sorejoy continued on the phone. "What's going on, Galler? It's rare you call me directly." "Well, I have great news for you, I'm sure," Galler announced. Sorejoy frowned. "Great news?" "Yes, we found something of yours. Her name is Yuki. 2 hunters happened across her ship and brought her to a local hospital. Poor thing was poisoned by a numb leech, but we've taken good care of her. Now that she's in stable condition, we wanted to let you know." Sorejoy's hand let go of the tumbler of liquor. It fell to the floor at his feet as he stared ahead in shock. "You don't say." "We're going to send her back home in the next few months from now, on one of the last of the trade ships leaving in the summer." Sorejoy was silent, slowly sitting in his office chair. "Ah, planning to send her back already then?" "Yes, of course," Galler announced happily. Sorejoy stared out over the city, his hand running through his crimson hair. "How is she?" "She's a lucky lady. Landed in a lake and wandered around in the forest for a few days. She did get bitten by a venomous leech, but those hunters got her to the hospital with plenty of time for treatment. She's stable. We're keeping her in observation at the moment." "That's good to hear, Galler." Listen, I'm going to send you some paperwork. It's from Mrs. Carcade's insurance company and the like. See, they've thought she was dead and are going to be happy to recommit their coverage. We'll send it over to you in the next few hours. But don't put her on the ship until it's all processed, okay, Galler? It can be a real headache. All right, is it really necessary? Yes, but very good news, Galler. Thank you very much. I'll send the papers to you briefly. Okay, then I'll talk to you later then. Best to you and your family. The phone clicked. Sorejoy placed the phone down and stood, looking back to Glass. For your sake, Yuki, you better not get on that ship. Cleo sat in the back of a town car at the day's end, her hands on her tablet held securely in her lap. It was powered off, a rare sight to see. She looked out the window, spotting cars passing by as well as a few angels in the air, all wearing respirators or heavy filtration masks of some sort. Something on your mind? Nibirios asked from the front seat. Cleo frowned. What was the most shocking thing that ever happened to you? Cleo turned to face the front of the small car. Nibirios chuckled. I was flying with my cousin, and we were way higher than we should have been on my uncle's farm. I wasn't used to flying for so long, and I got a cramp in my wing. Nibirios shook his head, keeping his eyes on the road. Spun down like a leaf, broke a leg when I landed. That moment when my wing cramped up though, felt like the whole world was over. Cleo's flawless face held little emotion on it, a blank slate as she glanced up at the few flying. Never liked flying, got so dirty up there. It's different in the country, Nibirios explained. No respirator needed, no need to wear protective gear. More folks fly out there. Call us city folk grounded, he laughed. Among other things. Cleo's mind seemed elsewhere as she looked at those in the air. I wonder sometimes if I can still do it. Hey, flying isn't hard, Nibirios explained. It's the landing that's the trick. Cleo's face didn't move as she continued to look out of the window. Thought I'd at least get a smile. Nibirios frowned. Everything okay? Cleo shook her head. I don't know. She looked ahead again. Why not a limo today? Limos are too flashy, Nibirios grinned. I have the town car out tonight. After I drop you off, I gotta take Taryn out to a job. Cleo frowned. Sorry, you're a glorified taxi service. I like to drive, Nibirios frowned. I don't like having to get rough, you know. As much as I am certain I can put a guy down, I'd rather not, if I can help it. Cleo gave a nod. Who's Taryn seeing? Nibirios smiled. Her regular. Cleo's face finally cracked a smile. Good. At least she'll be safe. Nibirios nodded. Hoffman's a decent client. Never had an issue with him. Pays in advance, and he loves Taryn. Cleo's face fell again, because she sweet-talks him, makes him feel big and important, and he has a thing for redheads. Nibirios pulled the car up, turned to Cleo. What's got you troubled? Cleo looked out to see Taryn sauntering up to the car. Taryn was wearing a long black furred coat, tall red heels flashing out from under it, and a very expensive necklace on her neck. A large green gem was nestled at the crest of her cleavage. Her hair was light, bouncy, and had black highlights. Her feathers were the same, with the addition of some silver glitter. Her makeup done up very dark and sexy. Cleo got out of the car, smiling at Taryn. Hey, Taryn. Cleo waved to her. Pat. Taryn smiled, giving her a hug. How's the 9 to 5 going? Cleo frowned. It's let's talk when you get back. Cleo looked to the emerald resting over Taryn's bust. That's a hell of a thing. When did you get that? Oh, this? It's not really mine. I mean, Taryn rolled her eyes. Yeah, it's mine, but I only wear for Albert, she smiled. He gave it to me as a gift. If I don't show up wearing it, she winked, he might not give me more. A laugh escaped Cleo's lips as she gave Taryn a final hug. Well, have fun. I always do. Taryn beamed as Nibirios got out of the car. Hi, Nabby. Nibirios' face fell slightly. Sup, Taryn. Nice ride. She slinked into the car, rolling down her window. See you later, Pat. She blew Cleo a kiss. Nibirios chuckled to himself, rolling his eyes and getting into the car. As the window to the town car rolled up, Taryn leaned forward. Nabby, what's wrong with Pat? She wouldn't say. Nibirios explained as he put the car into drive and ferried Taryn to her client. Cleo waved the car off. walking inside. There she found Mimi and a small male imp in an argument. "Why do you have a new girl here?" Mimi complained. "I needed another hand to get the job done," the small blue-skinned imp protested. "Listen here, Fitzy." Mimi pushed her finger to his nose. "I don't like letting people in here I didn't vet. Don't make me find another service, okay?" She smiled at him, patting between his horns. "I like you, Fitzy. Don't make me push you away." Fitzy grumbled. "I'll make sure she meets you before she leaves, Miss Mimi." "Good." Mimi smiled at the imp as he wandered off. Mimi spotted Cleo as she walked in. "Hey, hun, your room is getting spruced up. Cleaners are here." "I'm heading out in a bit," she smiled. "I have a date." Cleo nodded, heading to her room. "Hey!" Mimi shouted. "The fuck? Don't just nod at me, Cleo." "Sorry, Mimi." Cleo frowned. Mimi walked over, her brow furrowing. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" She narrowed her eyes on her. "Did that cocksucker Palmer bother you again? Nab said he'd kick that fucker's ass if he so much as bugged you." Cleo shook her head. "No, just exhausted from the day. My head is pounding and I just want to rest." Mimi looked Cleo up and down, not believing her. "Okay, well, if you need anything, you know who to call." Cleo nodded, heading to her room. There she found a small pink imp with black horns putting cleaning supplies into her satchel. Cleo hadn't met this imp before, so she must have been new. "Oh, hi," Cleo said as she walked in. The pink imp's head was in her satchel as she packed it. "I'm just finishing up, ma'am. I'll be out of your hair in just, She trailed off as she looked up to Cleo, white. Cleo frowned. "No. Cleopatra, nice to meet you." Cleo offered her hand. The pink imp blinked a few times and shook her head in shock, approaching Cleo in awe, taking Cleo's hand. "Ipswellia, but you can call me Ipsy. All my friends do." "Nice to meet you, Ipsy." Cleo smiled, looking around the room. "Nice job. Thank you." Ipsy beamed. "Oh, really? Thank you. Fitz only just hired me, and I've been so worried. He said we shouldn't ask any questions here or bother anyone inside too much and... Oh, I'm rambling. I'm sorry, I shouldn't... "No, it's fine," Cleo said, sitting on her freshly made bed. "I'll get going." Ipsy picked up her satchel and was halfway to the door before Cleo stopped her. "Wait," Cleo called out. "Ipsy, can I ask you a question? And please don't tell anyone I asked." Ipsy stopped, smiling. "Sure. Have you ever had a fairy tale that you thought was true, like a bedrock truth, and then, in just one moment, had that truth torn out from under you?" Ipsy was silent for a moment, and then placed her satchel on the ground. She wrung her hands a bit before looking at Cleo. "Well, we have a story we tell our children," Ipsy began. Cleo's gaze was focused on Ipsy, hanging on every word. "We believe that someday a great white-winged angel will come. The white angel will feed our hungry and heal our sick. The white angel will favor us, sometimes over our own kin, and lead us to salvation, to a world where we aren't..." Ipsy's search for a word to use, lessers. Cleo listened carefully. "Is that how the imps feel? That they are lessers?" Cleo thought back to her childhood. Her father had a butler who was an imp, a very sweet fellow as she recalled. Her imp housekeeper at the time was also sweet. She hated thinking back to those days, where she was brought up with a silver spoon in her mouth. It reminded her of her father. Ipsy gave Cleo a nod, picking up her satchel. "How did you feel, Ipsy, when you learned the truth?" Cleo asked. Ipsy stopped, turning to Cleo. "What do you mean?" "That it was just a fairy tale. How did you feel when you realized it was just a story?" Cleo pressed. "Oh, Miss Cleo, I always thought it was just a fairy tale." Ipsy smiled wide, until today. She turned and promptly left. Cleo frowned, following the girl. "Wait, dash." Mimi and Fitz were waiting by the doorway. Fitz narrowed his eyes. "Ipsy, shake a leg. Come on, you're barely making out of here by the tips of your horns." "Sorry, Mr. Fitz." Ipsy hurried herself out of the house and to a large van. "Sorry, Mimi. Give her a break, will you?" Fitz forced a smile. "I don't pay your people to chit-chat, Fitz." Mimi eyed the girl as she got into the van. "But I can tell she's a sweetheart." She tapped Fitz's right horn, then his left. "You're forgiven. Now get going." Fitz nodded, walking out to the van. "Pack it up, people." Cleo watched as 5 imps, Ipsy and Fitz included, loaded into the car. "Why those little short horns always gawk at your ass, I'll never know," Mimi said, stepping outside and taking a drag from her cigarette from its long holder. Cleo turned to Mimi. "Every time those imps are here and you are," Mimi turned to Cleo, "they can't take their eyes off you." Cleo frowned. "It's a curse," Mimi scoffed. "Of course you think it's a curse." Mimi took another drag. "If I had white hair and white wings, I could charge twice as much as I do for my jobs." Cleo was silent as another town car pulled up. Cleo frowned. "Is that your, friend?" Mimi smiled. "Yes, dear, that's him." She beamed. "Pays well and spends 3/4 of his time chatting." "And the other fourth?" Cleo frowned. "Sleeping." Mimi snickered as the window was rolled down. Mimi approached the car. "Reggie, darling, it's been too long." Cleo watched as an old man opened the door for Mimi. An oxygen tank sat in the car, its tubes running under his nose. His feathers were wilting and his wings sat lower on his back than most. He still stood tall, though with the aid of a sturdy and ornate cane. He wore a well-appointed suit, and Cleo frowned as she noticed that on the lapel was a golden pin that she had seen Swordjoy wearing. Cleo frowned as she thought to herself, what do Eric Swordjoy and Reginald Truman have in common? Of Night and Day, Chapter 12. Yuki's mouth was agape as she looked at the document sitting at her feet. "I'm awaiting an explanation," Dr. Terasuki said, narrowing her eyes at Yuki as she crossed her arms over her chest. "I didn't write it," Yuki stammered. "Obviously," Dr. Terasuki scowled. "Is this some sort of sick joke?" Dr. Terasuki approached the book. Yuki snatched it up off the ground, closing it. "Listen, I don't know how much of it you read, but dash. All of it," Dr. Terasuki shouted, her mouth making a loud, snapping noise as it shut tight in anger. Yuki took a deep breath and sat down on her bed, looking down at the book. There is a portion of that book that seems to imply that not only do we night dragons eat Dei Angels, Dr. Terasuki's eyes narrowed, but also that we indulge in cannibalism. Yuki gripped the book with white knuckles as she twisted it in her lap, pursing her lips as she tried to think of some excuse. Finally, after a few moments, Yuki realized she had no other option but to tell the truth. This book is all I or anyone on Dei is told of night. Dr. Terasuki was silent, but strangely Yuki could sense her anger rapidly subsiding. All we are told is that night is a dangerous place and that there are monsters on the surface. Yuki looked up from the book, concern on her face, and to an extent, that's right. Dr. Terasuki was silent as she looked down her snout at Yuki. "But I've learned that the night dragons are not one of those monsters," Yuki explained, lifting the book up. "This book lied. I know that now, but I didn't know that before I landed." For the first time, Dr. Terasuki's gaze softened, and she gently took the book from Yuki's hands. "I believe I owe you an apology then." "What?" Yuki asked, her eyes wide in shock. "I suppose if I were you," Dr. Terasuki explained as she sifted through the book, "I would have run from me as well." Dr. Terasuki gave Yuki a sidelong glance from the book. "I thought you were a complete moron, running from a hospital after being rescued." "Excuse dash." Yuki began to protest before being cut off. "But if all I had to go on about an alien planet was this book, I'd have run too." Dr. Terasuki shook her head. "This is going to sway the Proposition 453 in 454 votes. That's for certain." "I'm sorry, propositions?" Yuki's brow furrowed in confusion. Dr. Terasuki nodded. "Proposition 453 is to increase the payload of the most recent shuttle delivering trade goods today, and Prop 454 is whether or not it bother with extending the program after its expiration, come the end of the quarter." "Wait, there's a shuttle going from night to day on the regular?" Yuki asked, shocked. "You were unaware of that?" Dr. Terasuki questioned, putting the booklet under her arm. "Are you aware of any shuttle service between night and day?" Yuki shook her head. "What do they transport?" "Mostly fruits and vegetables. In return, Dei provides us with some rare metals and such that are difficult to mine due to the local fauna. Dr. Terasuke explained. While it's a nice gesture, the materials are not impossible to mine on Night. Yuki took a moment to consider something. Wait, you mean I could just hop on a ship and go back to my home planet? Yuki frowned. Yuki thought, I should be happy. I can see my son Jeffrey again, and Jax. She groaned at that last point. Oh, Guardian, Jax. That was the original plan, Dr. Terasuke said. But you've complicated that rather well, haven't you? Yuki turned away from Dr. Terasuke. You'll have a few months to make your decision, Dr. Terasuke explained. Yuki gave a nod. For the time being, I'd suggest you sleep on it. Dr. Terasuke was about to leave the room before Yuki stalled her. Wait! Yuki shouted. What? Dr. Terasuke snapped. Who are you going to tell about the book? Yuki asked. Everyone, of course. Dr. Terasuke explained. Wait, how would you do that? Yuki asked, surprised. The news, Dr. Terasuke stated. I'd call the head of the news outlet and advise of my finding. They would send a reporter. Yuki gasped. Please, you can't. Dr. Terasuke turned to Yuki, curious. Why shouldn't I? If no one on Dei is aware of Night, then why should I hide that fact from my people? Because if that happens, then Yuki winced, looking at her feet. Then I'll be a pariah. We won't be blaming you for the failings of your people, Yuki, Dr. Terasuke advised. But if everyone knew, they might. Yuki looked up to Dr. Terasuke, and Saren would. Dr. Terasuke heaved a sigh, looking at the book. Problem is, I already informed them that I found something of interest from Dei. Yuki's eyes went wide. Please, Doctor, think of Saren, she begged. I'll see you tomorrow, Yuki, Dr. Terasuke said, an indifferent look on her face as she shut the door, walking out of the room and toward her office. Once there, Dr. Terasuke placed a book on her desk and spotted a flashing light on her phone. She pressed it, listening to a recorded message. Hello, Doctor. My name is Hazelmar. I understand you had some information about Dei. I've also heard a rumor you have an interesting patient. Needless to say, I put two and two together, and I'd love to meet you and your patient. Assuming she's feeling better, drop me a line when you can. The message ended. Dr. Terasuke looked at the book, her expression still stone. After a moment, she reached into the top drawer of her desk, producing a small key. She approached her large filing cabinet, unlocked a heavy drawer. There she found Yuki's medical records, and she promptly placed the book into the file. She deposited the file folded back in place in the drawer and locked it. Dr. Terasuke then picked up the phone, dialing a number. Yes, Mr. Mar? Dr. Kattera Terasuke. Oh, Miss Terasuke. Hazel's voice answered. Doctor, Dr. Terasuke hissed. Oh, sorry, Doctor, of course. Hazel cleared his throat. I assume this is a follow-up to my call Dash. Tomorrow morning, you'll have 10 minutes. You may not speak with the patient. Do you understand? Dr. Terasuke ordered. Yes, perfectly fine. Hazel announced on the phone. Thank you for your cooperation. Dr. Terasuke hung up the phone and took a deep breath. I am trusting you, Yuki. The next day, Saren was heading into the hospital to visit Yuki. Upon entering the hospital, however, Saren felt something was wrong. He could feel an ache in his back, and he ran to Yuki's room in earnest. When he arrived, he found Yuki was not there. Frantic, he looked at her chart, seeing she was to be in physical therapy for the next few hours. He dashed down the hallways, zigzagging between patients and doctors alike. Excuse me, sorry, he shouted as he made his way towards physical therapy. When he got to physical therapy, he called out, Yuki? Saren. Yuki's pained voice called out, help? Saren rushed into the physical therapy room. It was a large room with a number of weights, stress bands, and exercise equipment, as well as a set of TVs in each corner. When Saren found where Yuki's voice was coming from, he couldn't help but laugh. Yuki's wings were fully extended, and her face was covered in sweat. A large knight with green scales and black stripes shook his head behind Yuki, giving Saren an accompanying grin, as he helped Yuki spread her wings fully. They're torturing me, Yuki bemoaned. Saren shook his head. They're just training your atrophied wing muscles. Yuki narrowed her eyes on Saren. You're with them? I knew it. Saren laughed. This is cruel and unusual. Yuki protested as the Green Knight finally let Yuki's wings rest. "You're a big hatchling," the Green Knight said, laughing at Yuki. "Haha, Ten." Yuki stuck her tongue out at him. Ten, the Green Knight, walked past Saren. "She can take a 15-minute break." Saren smiled, walking over to Yuki and hugging her tightly. "Ah!" Yuki cried out in pain. "Still tender, still tender." "What's tender?" Saren asked, smiling. "Everything," Yuki pouted. "I demand a chair and water and a kiss." Saren started with a kiss and took her hand, leading her to the corner. "I'll get you something to drink." Yuki groaned, flexing her wings, feeling a painful tightness in her wings' limbs as she tried to move them. Saren came to her with some water. "Here you go, love." Yuki nodded, drinking the offered water. "Thanks. It will be worth it when you can fly again." Saren smiled wide. "I haven't flown since I was a kid." Yuki smiled up to Saren, giving him the empty cup. "It's going to be so strange." "I'll teach you," Saren beamed. "Don't worry. And I'll get you into flying shape." Ten announced as he approached the two. "Well, shall we get on with it?" He smiled wickedly to Yuki. "Huh?" Yuki gasped, concerned, hoping for a longer reprieve from the training. "Looks like you need to finish your physical therapy," Saren grinned, "and then we will head home." "You mean my room?" Yuki asked. Saren smiled. "No." He laughed. "Home." Saren carried Yuki through the air, flying from the hospital over several large buildings, eventually making his way to a smaller building with several stories. There Saren landed on the third large balcony from ground level. Be it ever so humble, he smiled at Yuki as he walked to the door and produced a card. Yuki looked around, spotting the sliding glass door, and gave a laugh. "Oh, right. Why the front door be inside when almost everyone flies?" Saren nodded, the glass door beeping, and sliding opened. "Come in." Yuki walked in, exhausted from her physical therapy, and spotted a couch. "Oh, thank Guardian." She approached it, spotting a coffee table in front and a TV mounted to the wall facing it. Yuki considered living here for the rest of her life. It was not entirely dissimilar from her apartment on Dei. "I'll start making some dinner," Saren beamed as he walked off into the kitchen. "Make yourself comfortable." Yuki nodded, turning her attention to the coffee table, examining the knickknacks on it. There she spotted a picture of Marika standing next to Alia, alongside Saren, and another male knight she hadn't seen before. She focused on Alia, examining her face and scales closely. While she had seen Alia in Saren's vision, it was clearer to her now looking at this photograph. Alia reminded her of someone. Yuki sat on the couch, picture in hand. After studying it for some time, the TV remote caught her eye. She picked it up and turned the TV on, which was set to a news channel of some sort. The tail end of a news story came on. Can you imagine Faz Shia? Interstellar travel? Well, Demmer, we might not have to for much longer. A pair of knight, a man and a woman, stood before a large screen with images, information, and some numbers scrolling behind them. To Yuki's surprise, it was remarkably similar to a news station she had seen on Dei, though both anchors were sitting in that situation. The knight here wore formal attire, the male wearing a rather snug shirt that showcased his broad chest and biceps, and a set of slacks that ended at his ankles. His claws were oddly polished black, in contrast with his light yellow skin and emerald green eyes. His horns were polished in the same manner. The woman was in a business suit, for the most part, though she wore slacks that ended at her mid-calf. Her scales were dark green, mostly solid, with blue eyes. Her horns and claws were polished as well, shimmering black, though the tips of her horns had little gold caps on the tips, on top of the gold caps on her horns. She had a pair of sparkling earrings and a glimmering necklace that coiled around her long neck several times. We go to the hunt report with Trennick. Trennick? The anchor woman, Faz Shia, introduced. The next night's scales were brown, and he wore a similar suit compared to first male anchor, Demmer. Thanks, Faz Shia. Well, yesterday was a very eventful day, and not in the major hunt. An image of Tassel appeared on the screen. A record was broken yesterday by none after the daughter of the Northern District's top huntress, Marika won. Tassel won. An image appeared of Tassel, standing atop a massive beast. The blood seemed cropped out, Standing next to her, almost as tall as Tassel was standing on the creature, was a large and powerful-looking blue knight with matching blue eyes. Yuki glanced down at the picture of Marika and Alia. She held it up to the TV, her eyes narrowing. "Wait, you're not Marika's daughter." Yuki's eyes widened as an epiphany struck her. "You're Alia's," she whispered under her breath. The news report continued in the background. Tassel and her carrier, Lasser Trent, managed to take down a 2-ton bronzy. Amazingly, the kill didn't need to be airlifted. Lasser carried the majority of the load himself. At only 17, the boy stands a staggering 2.4 meters tall. The screen changed to Lasser next to an even taller blue knight, also a male, wearing a leather harness over his broad chest, his arm around Lasser, holding him tightly. "Mr. Trent, are you proud of your son?" a reporter asked off camera. "Of course," he laughed. "And I'm not surprised, because this is not the heaviest this boy can lift." He gave Lasser's arm a squeeze. "The boy still has growing to do." The scene shifted back to Trent at the desk. "Still has growing to do. A very proud father," he laughed. "Here is hoping Tassel and Lasser all the success of their predecessors and more. Safe hunting out there, folks." A large table appeared on the screen, showing a set of numbers, city names, and districts. In standard hunting results, we can see the Northern District hunt is up from last year by a sizable margin, but not too far ahead of the Central District hunt. Yuki was certain as she studied the picture closely. The phrase rang in her head from the memory Tassel shared in the dinner. What was that phrase? Something about Alia? The scene shifted back to the other anchors. "Tassel is really helping to skew the hunt in our district's favor, would seem," Demmer announced. Fazia nodded. "That's right, Dem. It seems the first Alia-born huntress has already made a splash. I can only imagine what the others will do as they enter the circuit. A new breed of huntress on the rise sounds like good news." Demmer laughed, the two anchors chuckling. Sarah and Yuki shouted from the living room as she approached the kitchen, "What is an Alia-born huntress?" Saren came to a halt in the kitchen, stopping his food preparation midway. "Alia-born? Why, Dash. The news mentioned that Tassel is Alia-born," Yuki said as she approached Saren, placing the photo she found on the counter. "And it's very clear to me that Tassel is not Marika's." Saren was silent, and Yuki could feel he was thinking of Alia again. "I thought you had no children with her," Yuki frowned. "Did you lie to me?" Saren shook his head. "No." His eyes were wet, sorrow on his face. "Saren?" Yuki's hand was on his forearm. Saren heaved a sigh. "Alia didn't die in the field. She died at the hospital." His eyes closed, sending a few tears down his cheek. Yuki could feel his pain, a tear rolling down her face as well. "But Alia was special," he smiled weakly, turning to her. "She came from a long line of huntresses." He took a deep breath. "So she had mutations. Her claws were stronger, her leg bones denser, her wings lighter, more agile." He smiled wistfully. "She was born to hunt." "But I don't understand," Yuki asked. "If Alia and you didn't have children, then how Dash?" "The government stated that, since Alia had elected to donate her organs upon death," Saren took a deep breath, "that this included her eggs." Yuki looked at Marika in the photograph. "So, several huntresses were eager to carry her eggs with their own mate seed," Saren explained. "Tassel is the result of Alia's egg and Marika's mate seed." "Oh, Saren," Yuki gasped. "Tassel looks so much like her mother." Saren shook his head. "She's really," he forced a smile, "something special, isn't she? That's why you were thinking of her in the diner." Yuki realized. "And before, when you kept seeing her smiling, was it because you kept seeing Alia and Tassel?" Saren nodded. "Oh, Saren." Yuki hugged him tightly, and he hugged back, tears leaking from both of their eyes. After some time, Yuki kissed Saren softly on the cheek, drying his eyes. "You know, you should look at this as a positive," she beamed. "A positive? How so?" Saren smiled back. Yuki nodded. "Yes, in a way." She looked at the photo. "She's left little parts of herself for you." Saren nodded. "There are 20 in total," he smiled. 20 pieces? Yuki felt a mix of emotions, but pushed past them, trying to cheer Saren up. "That's great, right? And Tassel's a sweetheart. She's like a niece." Yuki exclaimed. A niece? Saren furrowed his brow. Yuki nodded. Yes, just like a niece. And you could be her Uncle Saren, Yuki grinned. And I'll be her Aunt Yuki. Saren's smile warmed, and he kissed Yuki sweetly on the forehead. I love you, Yuki. And I love you. Yuki grinned up at him. Yuki's ears perked up, however, as the TV caught her attention once more. And more information on the Crash Day vessel that landed last week. Demmer began with a wide smile. Yuki rushed into the living room, Saren following behind her. Yes, Dem, the anchorwoman Fa confirmed on the TV. A picture of Yuki appearing on the screen, behind them. The shot was of her smiling, walking next to Saren at some point in the hospital, when she was unsure. Fa continued with the story. A very unlucky accident, and a very lucky young woman, Mrs. Yuki Carcade, managed to survive not only the crash, but a couple of days in the harsh wilderness before she was picked up by a hunting party. Hunter Lazarcade and her carrier Fezzik Rusi. A video of Lazarus and Fezzik now played. It was the strangest prey I've ever tracked, she smiled. But we found her a little worse of the wear, but we managed to get her to a hospital in Cairo City. Fezzik now spoke. Certainly smarter than your average Bronzy, he laughed. Yuki frowned as the story continued. Why didn't Dr. Terasuki tell me she was going through with this? Maybe she worried she would interrupt your treatment at the hospital? Saren offered. Fa now carried on. At the Nin Medical Institute of Cairo, the Dei Angel Yuki Carcade has been under the careful care of Dr. Katara Terasuki. A video of Dr. Terasuki played behind Fa. Yuki is in excellent health now, but needs rest to recover from her ordeal. We are in the process of reaching out to the Nitin Foreign Affairs Bureau regarding her immediate living situation. Dr. Terasuki explained professionally. And is there any confirmed date for Mrs. Carcade to return today? The interviewer asked off camera. Again, that is up to the Nitin Foreign Affairs Bureau to determine, Dr. Terasuki explained. We reached out to the NFAB's regional director, Gallery Nav, for comment, the reporter announced. A video of a rather proper brown knight, with muted gray spots here and there, and a pair of gray horns sat at a desk with a set of glasses sitting on the bridge of his snout. His eyes were a mix of green and brown. He wore a black suit and a rather brightly colored blue tie. An interviewer off camera asked, what are the current plans of the Dei Angel? At this time, we are currently coordinating between Dei authorities and plan to reach out to Yuki to inform her of her current options, he smiled, his claw tapping oddly on the desk. Galler appeared nervous on camera. Why am I on TV without someone consulting me first? Yuki complained. Saren gave Yuki an odd look. The news reports what it will. They don't have to ask permission. What? Yuki gasped, shocked. Why didn't Dr. Terasuki tell me about this at least? I mean, why would she? Yuki trailed off as she realized Dr. Terasuki could have told a different story. I guess she had her reasons, Yuki said out loud. Saren shrugged. She must have. She wouldn't do anything to fame you. Yuki chuckles. I guess not. Yuki changed the subject. So what about dinner? A few days later, Saren flew upside down, facing Yuki over a large range of pads and netting. Keep your wings open, he shouted. Yuki grimaced. It's not that easy to glide. Yuki grunted with effort, giving her wings a flap and pushing herself higher in the air. Whoa! Hey, not so high. Saren turned around and slowly began to ascend to meet her. Yuki steadied herself. I'm landing, okay? Saren was soon next to her, holding her hand. We're landing, he smiled. Yuki smiled wide, shakily descending alongside Saren until she got close to the padded ground. She misjudged the ground, however, and her foot came down just a second too late, causing her to tumble forwards onto the padding a few times. Saren laughed as she caught up with her. You okay? Glad you find it amusing. Yuki grumbled, sitting up, flexing her wings and taking a deep breath. I think it's the padding. Her physical trainer, Ten, landed next to her. If you can land on padding, you'll be able to land on solid ground. He smiled. Go again? Can I get a break? Yuki pleaded. Ten laughed. Nope. No rest for the weary, he explained. Ten turned for a moment but stopped, his face growing concerned. Saren held Yuki's shoulder tightly and she could tell he was on guard. "What is it?" As if answering her question, the ground beneath her began to shake. "Is that an earthquake?" Sirens began to wail in the distance. Ten shook his head. "No earthquake." He turned to Saren and Yuki. "Herds near the city." An announcement began to ring out through the city. "Warning. A longer Virtus herd is approaching the south wall. All occupants, evacuate immediately." 10 rushed out of the training room. Yuki turned to Saren. "What's happening?" "We need to move." Saren took Yuki's hand and began to run out of the building, the ground shaking more violently. As they left the training center, Yuki saw doctors and nurses running through the hallways with empty gurneys. Dr. Terasuki was shouting, "I want YARs all prepped and ready, every single one of them." She shouted, "No delay, life-threatening injuries are top priority." She glared at Yuki. "Clear the hallways." Yuki gasped as Saren rushed her out of the hospital. Yuki saw many Night rushing out of the building and taking flight. "Saren," Yuki shouted, "what's happening?" Saren looked to her. "Do you want to head up and see?" Yuki nodded, spreading her wings. Saren held her hand tightly, flying up toward the top of a mid-sized building. A number of other Night had gathered up top as well. Yuki spotted where the announcement was coming from. Her eyes went wide as, for the first time, she saw the wall surrounding the city. A wall was built out of hardened concrete stretching 30 meters into the air, and it was thick enough to drive a truck along the top. Separating large sections of the wall were huge towers that had the sirens and loudspeakers placed on top. In between these walls were large ballista. Each looked like a massive harpoon was loaded onto it. In between the ballista were massive cannons. These massive walls, cannons, ballistas, and towers encircled the entire city in a structure that was absolutely baffling to see the scale of. A new announcement rang out again, louder now that they were in the open. "Warning, all hunters to the south wall. The herd is on a direct collision path with the south wall. All civilians evacuate the south wall immediately. Medical personnel, please make your way to the south wall and maintain emergency responder distance." Saren's brow furrowed. "I need to go. Can I come with you?" Yuki fretted. "I'm scared, Saren." A young Nidan boy cried out, "Daddy, I'm scared too." Yuki turned to them, concerned as she saw his father kneel next to him. "It's okay, son. The hunters are going to protect us." As if on cue, several adult hunters flew off toward the south wall. The little boy pointed. "Daddy, it's Marika." Marika turned and grinned to the little boy, giving him a short salute as she passed overhead. Saren leaped into the air, and Yuki followed. As they joined the hunters, Marika soon flew next to Yuki. "Here to see the action?" Marika grinned. Yuk's expression soured. "I'm confused as to what's going on." Rogue herd. A black scale knight laughed as he flew alongside Marika. "Nothing we can't handle." Marika laughed. "You're too cocky. Let's get us some dinner, babe." The male announced. Marika grinned. "Duty calls." She followed after him. Saren motioned to Yuki to descend, where he landed alongside a number of other Night on a building top with a large medical cross painted on the roof. Yuki landed shakily. "I still don't know what's dash," she stumbled as the ground shook and a massive bellowing roar was heard. This roar was soon mimicked by other large creatures, and Yuki's eyes went wide as the trees not far from the wall began to fall with loud snaps. First, she only saw their heads, massive heads rising over the trees attached to thick necks. When they cleared the tree line, Yuki's mouth hung open. Each creature, from foot to shoulder, measured a staggering 7 meters, and that spoke nothing of the massive necks that sprouted from the huge creatures' bodies, towering 13 meters above their shoulders. The necks were thick, heavily muscled, and colored with striped skin that looked heavy and tough. Their teeth were sharp, though their eyes were on either side of their head, not front-facing like the rippers she had seen before. "That's a big herd," Saren's brow furrowed. A short female knight next to them in a nurse's uniform similar to Saren's spoke. "Guardians protect the hunters." Yuki watched as the massive animals opened their mouths, a terrible bellow coming from one, and then the other animals as they stampeded toward the south wall. An ear-piercing roar filled the air, and Yuki spotted Marika speeding towards the lead animal. There was cheering from rooftops as Marika slashed at its cheek. soaring around and slicing at its neck. Little blood was seen, but the lead creature soon turned, running alongside the wall now, the others following it. All the nurses, Saren included, let out a sigh of relief. Yuki smiled. Crisis averted? Saren smiled back. Marika got lucky. The herd didn't have any large dash. Bull! One of the nurses pointed, cutting Saren off. Yuki turned, staggering back and falling onto her rear as the building she was on shook even more as an animal almost 5 meters taller than the rest emerged from the tree line. This one was making its way toward the wall, and its roar was broad and deafening. Yuki covered her ears as she watched Marika and a number of other hunters swarm the animal. It made no sign of stopping despite the hunters nicking its flesh here and there. It's gone rogue, Saren shouted. It has to be put down. The massive creature swung its head to the left, and to Yuki's shock, it struck Marika. Yuki shrieked as she watched Marika fall, disappearing behind the opposite side of the wall. One other knight flew down after her. That's when she watched as the large artillery was moved into position. Another announcement came swiftly. Artillery engage. All hunters clear the area. Saren grabbed Yuki, hugging her head tight as a cannon fired. Yuki watched as a blast of fire and molten slag crashed into the creature's huge neck. Next, a pair of ballista fired a set of harpoons tethered to the side of the walls into the creature's neck. It roared in pain, falling behind the wall. Yuki's heart was pounding in her ears as she watched in shock and awe. The ground shuddered once more as the mighty beast was felled. Yuki watched as the remaining animals, almost 30, continued their maddened march down the length of the wall, eventually making their way out, away from the city. My guardian, Yuki stammered as Saren got at her feet. Are you okay? Saren frowned. I'm fine, Yuki shouted. Marika, did you see what happened to her? Saren shook his head. We have to wait. The sirens now ceased, and a new announcement came. All clear. Repeat. All clear. Medical personnel to the south wall. We have multiple injuries. Saren took to the air, as did the other nurses. Yuki jumped into the air as well, taking Saren's hand. Saren turned to Yuki, concerned. Yuki, no. You have to hang back. Like oblivion I am. Yuki shouted back. Our friend might be hurt. I'm not leaving your side. She narrowed her eyes at him. I'm not a stranger to danger. Saren frowned and nodded, descending behind the wall. Yuki this time lowered her feet too soon and stumbled slightly once she got to the ground. Saren looked around, seeing the body of the massive creature on the ground. It was heaving its final breaths. Blood soaked the ground as if it were water running from a stream. Marika was shouting near the head of the beast. Famil, she cried out. Saren rushed towards her, Yuki in tow. Marika, Saren shouted, rushing to her side and looking her over. Are you hurt? Marika's wing was injured. It looked bruised and battered. She was on her hands and knees, her hands grabbing fists full of dirt as tears streamed down her face. Marika's face turned to Saren, her eyes full of pain and loss. Famil is under there. You mean... Yuki looked around, focusing on the huge body of the creature. How did he get under there prior to the long Virtus bull showing itself? Marika soared through the air. A few other hunters were herding the longer Virtus away from the wall. Marika looked at her carrier, Famil, the large black-skinned knight. She smiled at him. Looks like we're done here, huh, babe? The black-skinned knight grinned to her and teased. You've been calling me that a lot lately. Marika smiled, running her hand over her head. My mate left me with Tassel a while ago, and, well, you understand me a lot more than anyone else. Marika was interrupted by a mighty roar. Bull! One of the tower watchers yelled. Hold that thought, Marika said, turning her flight path in midair and soaring directly at the large creature. She flapped her wings in long, powerful strides, rushed up to the face of the massive bull Longovirtus, and slashed at its right cheek with her claws, making sure to dig her toe claws at it as well, in case she missed. But neither did, and blood flew from the wounds. The creature let out a mighty wail, and while it seemed to be turning, it abruptly swung its head toward Marika with surprising speed. Marika, already flying away from the creature, was hit on her back. forcibly folding one of her wings and sending her spiraling down toward the ground nearly 12 meters below. The Black Knight, Famil, dove down from the air and caught her quickly, landing as fast as he could on the ground. Marika was dazed, looking up to him. F. Famil, she pointed up. Famil looked up and jumped forward, narrowly avoiding the mighty foot of the enraged creature. Artillery engage! All hunters clear the area. An announcement came from the wall. Famil jumped into a glide. As he flew, he was trapped low to the ground, not having the time or space to take flight fully. Marika was holding on tight as she saw the creature get blasted with shrapnel from a cannon and then skewered by the massive harpoons, but was now poised to fall directly on top of them. Famil, it's falling. Famil looked up and flapped harder, but soon looked ahead to see the fast encroaching shadow of the beast overtaking them. He closed his eyes tightly. I love you, Marika. Famil hurled Marika ahead of him with all his strength. Marika felt herself propelled forward. As she hit the ground hard and fast, she rolled forward about 20 meters. The ground shook suddenly and dust flew into the air. Marika coughed and gasped for air, the dust choking her. Medic! Marika heard someone call out in the distance, a slight ringing in her ears as she pushed herself to her knees. Dazed and disoriented, Marika staggered to her feet, placing her hand on the smooth rock right next to her. She looked at her hand, seeing her claw digging into thick leathery skin. Famil! She called out as she realized her hand was not against a rock, but rather the smooth hide of the massive creature. Marika looked around, frantic, confused, and bewildered. Her wing was battered and bruised, and as such she wanted to, she couldn't take to the air to search for Famil. Famil! Marika shouted, louder than before. No answer. The dust slowly cleared. Marika looked down, seeing the tracks she made on the ground as she had rolled. She followed them and found they were only a few short meters from the body of the beast. Marika's eyes widened. Famil! No answer. Marika clenched her fists, closed her eyes, and let out an anguished roar. She dropped to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Famil! She screamed. Her claws dug into the flesh of the creature before her. She frantically tore through its flesh, ripping in terror with her claws. No! Famil! I'll save you. I swear. Another announcement came from the wall. All clear. Repeat. All clear. Medical personnel to the south wall. We have multiple injuries. Marika looked up at the wall, tears streaming down her face. Down here! Help! Please! She glared at the bleeding wound she had opened in the fallen animal. Famil, you can't be dead! She fell to her knees, her claws digging into the dirt as she closed her fist tightly. Her eyes shut tight as tears streamed down her snout. You can't be dead! Saren shouted up the wall. A carrier is pinned down. Lift the body. Hurry! Heavy chains attaching harpoons to the wall above soon drew taut, and the body of the creature was slowly lifted up. Saren frowned. It's okay, Marika Dash. Marika grabbed him, glaring at him. It's not okay. She pushed him away from her frantically. He pushed me out of the way, she pointed, tears streaming down her face. I should be under there, not him. The chain soon creaked and signaled they were reaching their limits, even as the body only lifted a small amount off the ground. Saren moved Yuki back. Please wait here. He rushed to a set of doors near the wall, with the help of many others, as they moved what looked like large wheel jacks under the small space created by the harpoon chains. They began to push the jacks up, lifting the creature's body up higher. The roar of what sounded like a jet engine caught Yuki's attention as she looked up. Above her was a large craft with flashing white and blue lights. 4 jet engines on either side were pointing at the ground, slowly lowering the massive craft as a set of landing gear descended from the hull of the large vessel. As it touched down, the engines powered down, and a few more Night rushed out with a stretcher. Saren grunted, pushing his jack as high as it would go. Oh, thank the Guardians, the ambulance is here. Yuki shouted. That's an ambulance. The short knitting woman who Yuki recalled from the rooftop shouted. I see him. I need a stretcher. Everyone now rushed towards her, some pushing more jacks under the huge animal as more blood pooled around it. Yuki's hands moved to her mouth as she watched the black knight from earlier, Famil, slowly being pulled out from under the creature. Famil's body was battered, bruised, and crushed. His tail appeared to be snapped in half, and he was missing a wing. His neck was bent at an unnatural angle, and from his nostrils and mouth blood sputtered, indicating at least a few broken ribs had pierced his lungs. Someone shouted from the top of the wall, "It won't hold! The chain is coming down!" Everyone rushed away from the creature, ensuring that Famil was far away as the chain went loose, the jacks all straining and sliding down into ground. A loud bang startled Yuki as one of the jacks failed entirely, breaking under the weight of the huge creature. Saren shouted, "Is everyone okay?" Marika was kneeling next to Famil, her eyes streaming tears. "Famil? Oh, Guardians, why did you—" Famil gasped and wheezed, trying to speak, but failing. The EMTs who arrived in a large ambulance picked the stretcher up and carried Famil inside. Marika steeled herself and wiped away her tears, marching into the ambulance with the others as it took off into the air. Yuki was in shock as Saren approached her. "Yuki, are you okay?" Saren asked. Yuki shook her head. "Saren, what is that thing?" She pointed to the massive reptile that lay on the ground before her. Saren heaved a sigh. "That is a longer Virtus." He shook his head. "One of the bigger ones I've seen." "Get me out of here, Saren," Yuki said, reaching up to his neck, hugging him tightly. Saren took her up in his arms. "I have to go to her." Yuki turned to Saren. "What sort of uncle would I be if I wasn't there for my niece's family in their time of need?" Saren forced a smile. Yuki smiled weakly, shivering, fighting back tears. "Okay, let's go be Marika and Tassel's moral support." With that, Saren took to the air, heading towards a hospital.